You're watching the Letterman podcast with Mike Chisholm, endorsed by the Hello Deli.
Yeah. Welcome once again to the Letterman podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. This could be an intro. The intro to this episode could be an entire episode. I could go on and on and on because of the admiration that I feel for this gal. Um, I think I've talked about this on the show before, where I had a list when Shecky and I started talking about this thing. I had a list of people that I would love to talk to, just because of their unique people in the world of either Letterman or beyond, the world of late night, the world of comedy. That kind of a thing. You know, Bill, as an example, Bill Carter was on that list. You know, with Morty and all the other people. Some of those people I've talked to and become friends with. You know, some people I have yet to. But this gal was on that list, and it's Zoe Friedman. And Zoe's parents started the Improv, and in New York, moved it out to L.A. And I mean, we're talking about they started basically the first comedy club, and I mean, that's what she grew up. That was the backdrop of her growing up, is being around all of these stand-up comics. Andy Kaufman used to babysit her. I mean, holy smokes, we talk about that. Of course we do. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff too. Her backdrop is just amazing. And then she goes off and starts to grow up, and her first job is working for David Letterman. Like, she cut her teeth working for David Letterman. And that's an amazing thing when you think about it. Receptionist, it was an intern, receptionist, but then became the comedy booker. We've had Eddie Brill on here a couple of times. She was the predecessor for Eddie, and I mean, the laundry list of names that she helped shepherd their careers and used, you know, late night late show as the backdrop for them to come out to the world. Jim Gaffigan, his network television debut was Mitch Hedberg. That's one we talk about. That's a pleasure for me because I love Mitch so much. But and many other stand-ups. She tells me all sorts of stories from behind the scenes. But also, I look at her as she moved on from the Letterman world, went to work for Comedy Central, went to work for Warner. She has seen comedy through a very specific lens that only one person, only her, only Zoe could see that. But then goes to her real project, the Lifetime project, and that's Comedy Gives Back. Hopefully, you've heard of Comedy Gives Back. If you're hearing Comedy Gives Back and it's familiar, that's awesome. If you know exactly what they do, that's even better. But if you haven't, you will. This organization that she co-founded, and is currently the executive director of, is changing lives and saving lives and improving lives, and that's the lives of stand-ups. And we talk a lot about Comedy Gives Back in its infancy to what it is now. It's just a really phenomenal conversation. It's a dream come true conversation for me. It just is. And hopefully, those of you who love this stuff, will enjoy this conversation just as I did having it. I'm happy to present my conversation with Zoe Friedman. Zoe, I am thrilled beyond thrilled to have you here on camera. A couple of years ago, I met you in LA. Crazy circumstances, and it combined a whole bunch of my favorite things in the world: comedy, of course, and the Comedy Store, the revered Comedy Store, meditation, and then of course meeting you. And it was an incredible honor. Then I'm glad we finally got to do this. Now, we met at the Comedy Store. Before we get into anything here, growing up, the Improv versus the Comedy Store rivalry. Did you have to take sides, or were you somebody who had a chance to, you know, be neutral ground?
There were always sides to be chosen. There were always sides, and improv, is my family's club. Like, I was never allowed to go to other comedy clubs until I got to Letterman.
Right.
And then I worked really hard when I was booking the comedians to be a fair, equal player, probably to a fault.
Yep.
I do have a funny story about the Comedy Store, and the Improv when I was booking comedians for for Letterman. Is it okay
Yep.
to jump in? Is this all
Oh,
right?
oh, let's go. Let's go all over. Let's do it.
And I really wanted to be fair. I didn't want to just go to the Improv. I had 2 nights available. We were shooting a week of shows, And so I asked the clubs out here to send the bookers, the talent people at their clubs to send me tapes, because that's how we did it back
Yep.
then, of the comedians they would love to present to us. Like, who are their people, right? Who are those people I should see? And then, so they would send or have their comics send the tapes. I called the Comedy Store. I didn't want to, but that's where Letterman started. I mean, I couldn't ignore that, and again, I tried to be fair. I like justice. I like fairness. I
Sure.
should be Libra. I'm not. Um, the Comedy Store sent me no tapes. They sent me no names. Were not industry friendly. So I ended up spending one night of my showcases at the Improv, seeing 17 people, and that 17th person was Jimmy Fallon. Great story. Remind me to tell you about failure and all of that.
Yeah.
How failure kind of can help you. Help someone. And then I did it at the Laugh Factory. So those were 2 nights. And then Mitzi reached out to Dave at some point and said, Zoe Friedman, Bud Friedman's daughter, she came to town and didn't even come to us, and da, da, da. And thank goodness that I was able to, like, my side of the street was so clean. I was like,
Oh,
Dave, this is how I did it. It was really like fair and equal. And they sent me nobody. And so he was fine. I will say, in any and every case where it was me versus somebody else,
yep.
he always took my side, and
Yep.
he always supported and took my word. And there were a couple of great Letterman stories that we can get into later, where one involved Duran Duran, one involved Jeff Altman, and
Oh, my boy, Jeff Altman. I loved him. Okay. And I love Duran Duran too.
And anyway, so I there was a lot of rivalry, and there was a lot of rivalry in New York, and I never went to other clubs. Like, it was a real taboo. So for
So,
me now to go ahead, yeah.
no, no, no. I was going to say that experience that you just talked about. How old were you when that happened?
Um,
You were
I w-
young. You were young when that would have happened, right?
you mean in the when I was doing the showcases?
Hmm.
Well, right. It was like when I was doing the comics for Letterman, and that was so I started the show in 92 as an employee, and then I was a receptionist for 2 years, and then a
Right.
talent assistant. And by the time I got to booking comics, it was like 95,
Yep.
96. So yeah, I was a youngin.
Okay. So that's my thing. Like,
Yeah, I was
you
28 or
grew up where you grew up. The Improv, you're on Team Improv. Of course you are. Bi-coastal, the whole 9 yards, right? And
yeah.
now you're working for Letterman, and then you've got to go and deal with these other people, and you're young. Like, this is like kind of your first real job, other than being the comedy club kid. And I mean, it seems like it's such a cool thing that Bud and Silver's daughter went to work for Letterman as her first job to kind of cut her teeth on that side of the business. Is that accurate? That's how I've always romanticized you within this industry. Is that kind of it?
I think that is accurate, and there's more to it, right? Like with
Yep.
everything. So for sure. And what I used to say, so I mean, I had worked at the Improv in New York in every capacity. So customer service, talent relations, right? Like, I saw my parents kiss up to comics, for my entire life. They loved comics. I mean,
Yep.
honestly, they made money off of comics, but they loved comics, right?
Mhm.
So that kind of servicing and being like talent friendly, and I knew how to answer phones because I would answer phones at the Improv. I,
Mhm.
hosted. I was a coat check person. So I became a receptionist. I knew how to answer phones, and I also thought, like, they're so lucky at Letterman because I knew half the people. I knew Tim Stark. I knew the managers through the Improv. So I felt like I came in, and they sort of got the sort of like a really like somebody who was prepared for, well, to be a receptionist. I was college educated receptionist for 2 years, as one does in the
Yep.
business.
Yep.
I know you've asked the question about I was also an unpaid intern, and
Yeah.
how do you do that? That's because my mom lived in New York. That's the only way. And I ate baked potatoes and cup of soup, sometimes cup of soup on the baked potatoes. That was my lunch from the kitchen. I mean, my friends go, "You had baked potatoes in your corporate work kitchen?" I go, "Yeah, I don't know why, but that's what they were there." And anyway, but yeah, I did cut. So yeah, I cut my teeth at Letterman. I grew up, I did every job there in the talent department.
Yep.
I did cut my teeth, and then I had to, so I knew how to like talk to people, answer
Yeah.
phones, and deal with talent.
Yep.
But I did have to like use all those skills and go out of my comfort zone, like in terms of At that age, if you remember, right, I think we were so much more black and white in things, and as a
Yeah.
child of divorce, which I hate that it's such an imprint on me in some ways, like, it was a public in a small circle of comedy, a public divorce, and it wasn't
Yep.
a very amicable divorce. And, I moved back to New York with my mom, and my dad stayed here, and it was really not great in the in the sense of this kind of team, whatever. So I
Yep.
had to kind of break that and kind of reach out to the Comedy Store and reach out and do showcases everywhere. I mean, and that was great because, they were the same comics. I just got to see more of it. And,
Yeah.
when I started working with comics at Letterman, the process, which you might have heard about from other bookers, but my process after they were booked is they would be in New York for, if they weren't New York comics, come in for a couple of days before. And I mean, we would do 5 sets a night. I mean, we
Yeah.
would be round about town and, trying it and getting it tighter and suggesting maybe open with that. You don't need that bit, oh my God, the best. Like, to,
Yeah, like those of us who love this stuff and don't necessarily aspire to do this stuff but want to be around it. I
yeah.
mean, okay, how many people who work a day job bust their butts to be able to go and see some of these shows as much as they possibly can and work it around their life? Your life became getting to go comedy club hopping and schmoozing, and then not just that, you were given incredible latitude in showing these comics how to steer their sets so they could be part of what is, arguably, but I personally think clean comedy is the hardest form of comedy.
Well,
And never mind
yeah.
the actual dialect that Letterman's show had.
That's right. The specificity of what his clean comedy meant was in addition. So, no sex, no drugs, no bodily functions,
Yep.
like very, very, a monologist, the Jake Johanssons,
Yep.
and great people, but very specific under the umbrella of clean comedy. I
Yep.
mean, clean comedy can be a lot of things. You could talk about, you know, post-coital something
Sure.
and still be clean. But Dave didn't want, he's very Midwestern, and that was fine too. I could wear that hat and what I tried to do for comedians, because truth be told, they are some stubborn, willful MFers. I don't know if we can curse, but
Oh
they
yeah.
they're on stage alone for a reason, and my conversations were harder with some than others.
Yep.
And I was young and I was a
Yeah.
woman and I was dealing with older males, giving notes, telling them this joke might not work and whatever. And, I would get into some stuff with the comedians. And what I would try to say is, and I understood this, like, I would never be as, I can't walk in their shoes and I don't know their set as well as they'll know. I just never will.
Yep.
But I do know what Dave likes. And so,
Yes.
they might have a closer and I was like, gosh, I don't think you should close with that, but that's my closer. That's what I do. And I said, I get it and I want you to have a great set. But you also want to come back, right?
Yep.
Like you want to, and some listened, some didn't listen and still came back. Some didn't listen, didn't come back. And, I get some reflection like from like a Greg Fitzsimmons who said, you told me that. And my closer was a hack thing and that I didn't need it. And I rarely hear, and you were so right. Cause he was in this day, far and few between people, but yeah, so that was the process, and we would go around club to club. And yeah, I mean, I think my predecessor did it as well. I probably did it more just because it really was my life. It was in my life before. Like I loved comedy. Being in a comedy club was literally my second home.
Yep.
So even though Daniel Kellison did it before me and Mary
Yep.
Connolly, I think I also like loved rolling up my sleeves and I loved working with comedians, right?
Sure.
I feel like that was just like, not that I'm a comic whisperer, we joke, but like working on jokes and sets and to be around and not, I mean, I've read, even though I've worked in the industry and I have done good work, but I always felt like being the owner's daughter at the Improv, I got to ride on the coattails and hang out with the funniest motherfuckers and not be a comedian. That doesn't really happen a lot. And I was grateful because it's a happy place for me for sure,
You brought up Kellis and Connolly too, as far as I'm concerned too, of just legendary people behind behind the scenes, that made late night and late show so damn good.
Yeah.
And you talk about segment producers and how a segment producer sometimes can create magic. You kind of got to have fun with that, but you got to be the segment producer for the comics themselves. And like you think about on your staff favorite moments on the Pants channel, you
Yeah.
talk about that week where it was television debut week, and
Oh,
you look at the list of people who were on that week that
it's
you got
funny.
to kind of put in front of the camera and showcase, and literally sometimes made a career based on
One of
how
four.
you produced that segment.
One of four, but you
One of
know,
four.
one of four. I was
You have to be.
sweating on a couple of the other nights. As on a tangent, when I started at Warner Brothers, before I started Warner Brothers, I had
Yep.
interviewed Peter Roth, and he was the head of, we cut this out if you want, but he's the head of Warner Brothers Television, and he shared a story with me about coming over from Fox,
Yep.
and and soon after he got from Fox to Warner Brothers, he wanted to bring Chuck Lorre in. Chuck Lorre didn't have the success
Right.
yet, but he had some Fox success, and he made a big to do, and he kind of had lawyers break the deal at Fox, bring him over. I mean, a big, like, hefty deal. And he had, I think it was like 3 or 4 failed pilots. And then Two and a Half Men happened, and the success was so out of control. The 3 or 4 pilots were forgotten,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And all I wanted to really ask him is, but how was your stomach through that whole thing? Like while there was these failures, like were you like, so in the smaller, very micro example of this network debut weeks where very funny comedians who blew up but
Yep.
might not have been Dave's cup of tea, and that's the whole thing, right? Somebody could have a great set, even come back and maybe not be totally Dave's cup of tea. Whereas I got it 100% right with Jim Gaffigan, and then they
Yep.
developed with him, and off to the races. And then I don't think anybody remembers.
Yeah, he actually had a pants deal. Like some of the comics who came in
That's right.
ended
He
up with
became.
pants deals. He was one of them.
They did that show, Welcome to New York,
Yeah. Yeah,
which was
that's
with
right.
Christine Baranski about him coming from the Midwest. That moment, Mike, I can tell you, when I was called up to Rob Burnett's office at the time after the Jim Gaffigan thing. And again, I was sweating the week. It wasn't like the audience wasn't laughing, but I was sweating like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. And Jim's set, was great. And Zoe, we want to see you up in Rob's office. And Jim's manager, who was a close, colleague of mine at the time, we all, you spend the time in the clubs with all this your
Yeah.
generation. And Maureen Tarrant and I got called up, and she was the manager. I felt I was in trouble. I didn't get called up unless. And they're like, that was great. We want to do a deal with Jim. And I mean, I felt like I was in show business. Like
Yeah.
that was so exciting for Jim to give that opportunity, like that Dave liked it so much. It meant so much to me. I worked so hard. He didn't care so much about the talent department, really,
Yeah.
he couldn't care less about half the guests we booked, and I came up through the talent department. So, on the writers, it's a whole different relationship. So, but he cared about comics. And
Yeah.
so it meant the world for me to get it right. I wanted to get it right all the time, for him and for the show. So that was a big moment that was just like, oh my God, this is showbiz.
Okay, so at this point here, before, okay, we're gonna get to before that because I do want to talk
Yeah.
about your life at 30 Rock a little bit before
Yeah.
we get there because this is a big moment, obviously. Working for Pants at that point in late show, they've got their own autonomy and stuff, and then you're gonna be stretched a little bit more soon because they're gonna bring Joanna in and all that sort of stuff. But I want to go back to 30 Rock for a second here
Yeah.
because the reception part tickles me to no end because I assume, and I perhaps I'm wrong on this, but I assume you would have known like Morty and some of these other people from the club side of things. Like, did you know very many Letterman people just being the kid at the club?
I knew Morty for
Yeah.
sure.
Isn't he the greatest, by the way? I'm just going to throw that
Love
out there. I love
Morty. I
Morty.
mean, our
I love him.
relationship. So by the way, like I've worked with him, at Letterman and for him. I was with him at his Italian villa after he got let go, which was like being with the Nixons after the impeachment. That's a whole nother fucking story. I
Can
was
I say
back,
one thing about that villa? Just
yeah,
because I've never said it on the show.
yeah.
This we know what that was the inspiration for. His villa was the inspiration for, right? One of the craziest, silliest asides in a Seinfeld episode
Oh,
ever, where they talk
oh,
about Tuscany, and they're talking about oh, don't go to Tuscany. Oh, no, 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 don't go to. It's exclusive. That's apparently based on Morty's villa. I don't
well,
know.
that's so funny. Well, I made it there once with my friend Anna. We were traveling and I had no idea. There was no social media. I was so proud I hadn't like checked into work and he was fired. It was a whole another story. So that, and then when I was at Comedy Central, I was his executive in charge of production, like not his boss, but certainly
Yeah,
like I would have to turn what Morty taught me on him. And we would fight sometimes
yep,
because I saw him fight for things he believed in. And I remember it was Carlos Mencia's show
yep.
that he was the executive producer and I was the executive, and we'd get into it, but it was done with love and with respect. And
Yeah.
I remember Carlos kind of getting worried at some point, like maybe we should have a different executive. And Robert was like, no, there's no other executive. Like, like, no, no, this is what we do. This
Yeah,
is what
you fight it
you
out. You got to
you nerd it
massage it
out
through,
and
and yeah,
right. So he taught me, you kind of get it. So I had such and now we're friends. He lives in Venice near me. I see him at a lot of memorials of late. That's a bummer, but it happens. So
yeah. So
um
okay, back in the
yeah.
day, then. So you knew Morty
So I
in the
knew
clubs.
Morty, and I'm trying to think if there were anybody else on the show. Peter Lasalle wasn't there yet. I think I had
Yeah.
met him like through the years. I didn't, that was probably it. I mean,
Okay.
I think, because so I was an intern. So I was an intern.
Yep.
That's how I knew people on the staff. So I knew a lot, but I was an intern like in 86. So
Right.
after my freshman year, it was during the summer and I was in the talent department. And so I knew that's how, I mean, it was, so I've spanned the years, right? And then I went away and finished college, then traveled for a couple of years,
Yeah.
then started my employment there.
Yep.
So I knew Rob Burnett when he was the talent assistant. I knew
Yeah.
Lori Leonard, she was a talent assistant. Kathy Vassapoli, Paul Schaefer's wife, when she
Well,
was a
Schaefer.
talent,
Yeah.
you know, and
You worked with Madeline? Did you work with Mad?
Madeline and I. So my story with Madeline is I walked her into her job interview and as an intern. So I was working the phones up front and she was there. And I remember seeing her resume on the desk. And I had studied in Italy and she worked at RAI, like the Italian, she worked on a crazy variety show in Italy. And so I saw her and at that point I was like, maybe I'm going to work in Italy. I speak Italian. I went and studied. I was so excited when I met her and I walked her into her interview and that was that. And then when I came back in 92, I overlapped with her for about 3 months, maybe.
Oh, yeah. She would have still been there at that time.
Yeah, like just for like maybe even 2 months. And
Yeah.
I was like, Madeline, how are you gonna leave? You get 8 weeks of paid vacation, great health. I mean, this was my first, job
Yeah.
out of like real job out of college in a career I wanted. And although I got paid $18,000 in 1992.
In New
I
York.
It was right in New York. Yeah, right. I was like, how could you leave this job, Madeline? You have all these perks. She goes, Zoe, sometimes the perks just don't matter. It's time to
Yeah.
go. Right. So for her, she was done. And you get to that place eventually, I mean, because she had been there then. If I was 86 and I started, that was like 6 years she was there. Right. So I think at that time, like
Did
if
you
I
two
started,
interact when you were with Kilborn? Because I
no,
imagine there would have been sort of because there was a
she
little dos
wasn't.
I know that happened there, right? And so
Well, yes, but not directly.
yeah.
So
Oh, I know, not directly, but you two knew each other. I thought maybe there might be a.
no, I guess not. I mean, apart from, I'm trying, maybe years later we sort of commiserate.
I just think it's very interesting. The Kilborn Stewart thing to me is fascinating in so many ways, and she's going to come on here and we're going to talk about it one day. Madeline and I have lots of conversations off camera, but I'm so fascinated by that and charmed by that because you talk about these deals. Dave back in the day, Dave had this holding deal with NBC, and really at the end of the day, so he didn't go against Johnny back in the day. That's what NBC was trying to protect, and you think about that. Modern day versions of that, the idea that Jon Stewart also having being held by pants and okay, and no, we're
Mhm.
gonna take the Daily Show guy Craig Kilborn for our 12:30 show, and Stewart then goes over. Like, it's crazy
That
how
is,
sometimes
yeah.
these things happen, and you were kind of in the center of a lot of that
I
stuff.
was, I was, center is a little bit like
You were
too.
there while it happened.
I
How's
was
that?
there. I was there. I kept to my own, like, Joanna and this kind of launch to try to, have a bigger role also for my career. And Joanna, I mean, I had the same job under two different bosses, and
Yep.
that's an opportunity that doesn't leave you. It doesn't matter in what industry it is. But Morty was hard. He was like a really hard, not very, I love him, but he was tough on us, just
Oh
like
yeah.
Dave was on the writers, right? He was tough on the talent department. And, his management style was not like, that's not how I thrive, but I did fine, in
Hmm.
it. And then Joanna came in and she was like nurturing and like go ask for more money and like, and she had a plan and I was puzzle piece of that puzzle. And so I wasn't even so in touch with the whole Jon Stewart thing, Craig Kilborn thing, but yeah, that's interesting. The thing I wonder about Craig Kilborn is like that sliding door moment. Like, he was offered a contract and he walked away because it wasn't the money he wanted, and a generation don't even know his name.
I
Like,
know.
it's so interesting. Like, that's like what would have happened if he stayed on. It was really why. I mean, he's doing fine. He has his Mr. Kilborn, and I think financially he does
Yeah.
fine. But I'm always amazed, like, because ego and fame is part of it too. And he had an opportunity. Like, people don't walk away from late night contracts. Like,
And he's a guy who could do it, because not everybody can. Like again, you talk about, that's actually one of the things I wanted to, maybe discussion points I wanted to have with you. Like, you've seen, I don't know, tens of thousands of comics, thousands for sure, throughout your life. But at the end of the day, only a handful, even after kind of the door got kicked open after Carson retired, and everything expanded, and
yeah.
there became more room for all of these different people that could do the job. Not everybody can do the job. And I was curious as to what your unique perspective might be on the skills that somebody has to have to be able to do that job. Because Kilborn could do it. He was great at it, I thought.
He was a
Now
good
it's,
broadcaster.
yes.
He was a very good broadcaster. He understood, and that's the thing that Dave had that a lot of other late night hosts didn't have. Johnny, yes, but he's a comic, but he was a broadcaster. He
Yeah.
went to broadcasting. So, like, it's a different skill, and certainly you could be a late night host without it. We know
Yeah,
that, we see it, but
sure.
and Dave was so intelligent and curious, and I think so for me, he set the bar so high, in terms of what it takes, because Greg's a great broadcaster. He didn't have the same comedic instincts as Dave.
Yeah. It
And
helps being the sharpest wit in the West who can respond, just without even thinking, and it's gold most of the time. That Dave is just that guy.
And he is, and not, they'd rather talk about like what he is and not somebody who isn't, but
Yeah.
correct. Like, and obviously in my personal, like professional and personal comedy, purview. Like, Dave is like, people have Conan. I like
Yeah.
Conan. I like Conan, his comedy, his silliness more than him with guests. But, like, yeah, Dave is the bar. And Carson, of course, before. I wouldn't have worked at Dave if, honestly, I love Carson so much.
Did
I
you?
loved the show
I
last
assume you
week.
met Johnny, right?
What's that?
You met Johnny, right?
I had met Johnny a couple times. I met him at the Improv once. Like, he was there, and I happened to be in LA, like when I was a kid, a teenager, and my dad, and he knew I was such a fan. I was shaking, and he's like, "Would you get Mr. Carson some popcorn?" I was like, "Okay," and I walked back with a basket of popcorn, and he was always very, very nice. And then my favorite Johnny Carson story, like I have many, is that he bought me dinner, but he bought all of us dinner at the pre-Emmy dinner that we would have up in Malibu. And it was Johnny's last year in the running. So he was nominated. We were nominated. He came back to say hi. And, we all just sat there. And I think he said something and nobody really got it, but we all laughed. And, it was like a moment. I mean, again, like those moments like, oh, I'm in show business. So, and
Hmm.
then we heard later that Johnny picked up the whole check. And, I was like, oh my God, Carson bought me dinner. I didn't have to go with him, home with him. No. And I went home with Jen Stilson, my best friend at the show at the time.
Excellent.
Yeah, she's the greatest.
Well,
You
that's
should.
even a little more
Have you
compelling to
interviewed
me.
her? Probably won't be interviewed.
I haven't had her on. That would be the thing I love about that story is of the I don't know how many dozen staff members I've had on the show over the time.
And they've told you
That
about the
story is
dinner.
probably what's that?
And they've told you about that dinner.
That story is probably the most
Yeah.
favored story for almost all the staff. Any staffer in that time frame who got a chance to be at that dinner, that event made so much of a mark on the
Yeah.
entire staff. Anybody who I've talked to that was at that dinner, they bring it up as one of the biggest highlights by far. Like,
Yeah, and it makes sense. We all a little bit gaga because we're all in late night, right? So just inherently, we all have a reverence for, and this was so many years ago, but for the predecessor, for the person who came before us.
yeah,
And of course, that would be significant. And I think we were also outsiders, we were New Yorkers, we weren't in the Hollywood, and
yeah.
so, and by the way, I was 20, literally, I just turned 25 because I could rent a
You could
car.
rent.
So it was, Emmys are September. My birthday is end of August. It was, and of course I rented a convertible as we are all
Yep,
cliches.
yep.
And I mean, we just had, it was, those, uh, those opportunities, like for me to go to the Emmys at
Mhm.
25 was like going to like prom. I couldn't
Yep.
care less. Like I didn't even have, my school didn't have a prom, but like that was my homecoming. I was like, oh my God, I am in the sea of TV and
Yeah.
I love TV and I wanted to be in TV my whole entire life. And he'd fly the whole staff in and we'd all, we'd have to put ourselves up and get our own car, but then buy us tickets to the Emmys. I mean, and then we were like Superman changing at the Denny's, like on lots of hunger, before
Yep.
getting on the red eye to go back to work. Oh my God, we were so young. I'd never do that now.
Um,
Oh my
Kellison
God.
told me a story. I don't know if you were part of this group or not, but at one point he was being pushed in a shopping cart and went almost to his death. They almost pushed the shopping cart out into the road, and lots of great stories from that
Oh.
trip that I've heard. Um, one thing I do want to mention though too, I don't know how much you've talked about it. I know that you have, but I think it's charming for this audience to know your very first encounter with David Letterman was when you were really young. You were at the very first morning show.
Oh, yes. Oh my God.
Like,
I didn't meet him, but
yeah, no, but how crazy is that?
yeah, Jude Brennan came up to me like at the 40th anniversary of being on air. So again, we were at CBS.
Yep,
So, and they didn't own the library at that point. So it was sort of this anniversary that was kind of weirdly marked.
yep.
And they were looking at footage of the first morning show. And she was like, was that you? I go, yes, my dad was so my parents had divorced. We had just moved back.
Uh-huh.
And my dad was in town. He knew Barry Sands, not
Yep.
even Letterman. I mean, not even
Yeah, Barry
Morty.
was the exec. Yep.
That's right. And Morty was just a segment producer, not just, but
Yep.
he was a segment producer.
Yep.
And so Barry Sands got us tickets and we sat and pigtails, Spider-Man t-shirt. And I didn't know what the hell I was watching, but I knew I wanted in. That was my circus that I wanted to run away to.
There
Like
we
with
go.
Yeah,
There we
it was
go.
like my life, like creatively, I was like, I don't know what I'm watching. It was the weirdest. I would love to see it now because,
Hmm.
again, it was a morning show. So we knew what morning shows were with weird, like goats and sheep and, weird stuff. I just thought it was the best. And yeah, it really stuck with me. And I got to run away with that circus for a dozen years. I mean,
Yeah. Well, you
for
did, and you got to stay in comedy, and you still are, and you're still surfing those waves. Now, three siblings, right?
No, I have one. Well, I have three. Yes, that's correct. I have
Okay.
three siblings. I have my sister. I have one biological sister and two stepbrothers.
Right.
My
Okay.
yeah,
Any of them get bit by the bug the way that you have?
my stepbrother Ross did. My sister. So to show you how far it could go is my sister like is a Tai Chi teacher in Santa Cruz. Like she has like she was a health chef for many years. She lived on a woman's land outside of Portland, Oregon for a dozen years and like changed her name to Free Woman because they never said anything with man in the title. Like so
Wow.
and she's lovely and she loves to laugh and she's a good spirit and a wonderful like but not in the business at
Hmm.
all. And my two stepbrothers, Ross actually, my older stepbrother, had the very similar or same job as I did at Letterman for Leno years later. So we never did it at the same time. We never had to compete for
Yeah.
network debuts, right? We
Yeah.
never had that. But like he did pretty much the same job. He and Bob Reed were managers together, business partners together, and then they started booking the comics for them. And he was there for many, many years. And now is, and has gone and he still produces and books and, so he's in it. And my younger stepbrother is in exhibitor relations at Disney. So related, but
So
yeah,
okay.
Ross and I, yeah. So
Um,
touched on, yeah.
let's talk about that. I'm very grateful that you kicked that door open because I want to walk through it a little bit. Now our show is a positive show. We don't go into scandal and all that kind of stuff. Every once in a while things come up, but that's not what we focus on, right? So that being said, I take it easy on Leno. I look at it. I look at Leno as pop music, and I look at Letterman as Pink Floyd.
Mhm.
like just something completely different, where numbers don't matter at all in this world, because this is the thing that's going to create cult followings and things like that. I kind of look at it that way,
Right.
and I try and edify as much as I can. That being said, in watching over the years, and I didn't watch a ton. To me, The Tonight Show all those years was very much appointment. If one of my favorite bands was on there or somebody that I really like, okay, I would go out of my way. But other than that, I wouldn't watch it at all. One of the things that I was surprised about was, and this is just my viewpoint, and I'm curious what your perspective is. The booking of comics on Jay Leno's Tonight Show versus the booking on comics on Letterman. I thought the booking of comics on Letterman was a lot closer to Carson's Tonight Show than the booking of comics on Leno's Tonight
Mhm.
Show. Do you have an opinion on that? Just curious if you've ever
Hmm.
even
That's a
considered
really
that.
that's a really interesting question. I'd love to see the booking list, right? To be able
Sure.
to sort of say, be more educated about it. I mean, I would just say the shows had their very specific tones, and both of them came up through the stand-up world. And yet, the pop culture or a pop band versus whatever. However, I would imagine the comics were probably not as specific as what Dave booked. Dave had such specificity in
Yeah.
everything under his name. And I think Leno just was a broader show that booked just and acted more broadly. And Dave went from the underdog late night show to the a fierce competitor in the thing. And I thought that was great that he could retain some of who he was and still elevate for that CBS. Jay was a huge part of my childhood. Jay is
Hmm.
a wonderful like member, like I would say family, like friends and family. Like
Used to
he
sleep on
slept,
your couch.
he slept on my couch. I
Yeah.
mean, and my parents did not bring in a lot of comics into our home. Like it was not in a we went to the club, we met comics, but they weren't in our homes.
Yeah.
Jay was. Jay is the kindest, wonderful, most thoughtful. When I see him and I'd run into him in LA when I first moved there, oh my God, how are you? How's your sister? How's your mom? And he would remember my sister's name. Like,
Mhm.
really, like, I've always thought he was like on a campaign,
Yeah.
a little bit. And I don't, and he was my favorite stand-up. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, like his comedy when I was probably, more like when I was older, like a young teenager, adolescent, and he would do that, current events, and it felt so spontaneous
Hmm.
and it felt edgy
The What's
and
Your Beef segments with Letterman are some of the greatest moments in television and comedy.
yeah, I know they are. I don't know. It just didn't translate to as kind of Jay. I don't know to a brand, right? It
Yeah.
didn't feel so Leno centric. It was an enjoyable show. It did very well for many years.
Oh yeah.
And it was just a broader show and less. I just think it didn't have the same imprint that Dave had. Like his specificity of what everything was, from his comedy to the guests to the comics, right?
Yeah.
And comics because the guests were who's promoting and blah blah blah. And I would get involved with that, like that. I worked in the Towns Barber in addition to comics, so I would get I'd be involved with this booking, who's doing first, who what show first. um like the Jim Carrey was always an interesting thing because Jim, before my time booking comics,
Hmm.
came from being a stand-up. Letterman show passed on him doing stand up on the show. He
Hmm.
got booked on Leno because this is a good example. So
Yep.
Jim Carrey is a broad impersonator of physical comedy, incredibly funny,
Yep.
wildly successful. Not that was the right call for whoever was booking at the time. It wasn't a Dave. And then he went on to superstardom.
Yep.
And and then every time he had a film come out, he would do Leno because Leno gave him that shot.
Yep.
And that was of lore. That's something that I remembered. And there was even when I booked Dane Cook, and I loved Dane, and Dane continued to have like come back to the show and have a relationship after I booked him because I left soon after. But I will say that I said to Dave, or I thought about it in the way that Dane wasn't traditionally his cup of tea. He was a prancer.
Yep.
He was more physical. He did his like impressions of his sister or the jellies. He had a different tone, but he was blowing up, and he was the first comedian to play he was
Yeah.
on ascension. And I said, to Rob and Dave, I was like, I think Dane's funny. He's killing it. He's growing. So I think we should book him, period. And if we could take a learning, maybe this is our next Jim Carrey, right?
Yep.
Like that we would want to be invested in right now, blah, blah, blah. And so he came on. I mean, the career trajectory is different, but Dane's had a great career and came back a number of times, which made me feel like, that's a success. And yeah, and Dane is one of the few comedians who will sing about me from the rooftops that I gave him that break. Not a lot of other
Oh.
people might, but I mean, they don't keep it silent, but he was, so excited about it. We still talk about it. And when the show ended, I spent the last night of the show with Dane talking about me and the show ending. And I was at the bar watching the last Letterman because I didn't have cable at the time.
Oh my God, that's
And
hilarious.
then the room manager came in and said, Dane Cook is talking about you. And I went in and he was telling the whole story of getting booked. And he goes, we all need a Zoe in our corner. And I go, I'm here, Dane. And the audience was like, oh my God, Zoe's here. It's so funny.
What was the venue? Where was this?
At the Improv
It
here
was
in
at the
LA.
Improv. Oh, of
Yeah.
course it was. Um, I keep marveling at how you are the person that has had your leg into different places that a lot of people they would not do that. Like I think about okay, so like Comedy Store and the Improv. There's one. Leno and Letterman. There's another one. Dane Cook, Louis C.K. There's another one. Like there's all
That's
sorts of them, and there are probably a lot more with you. You are the Switzerland of comedy booking executives that are out there, and it makes sense that you would do Comedy Gives Back. We're gonna get to that.
okay,
Um,
cool.
my God, I'm enjoying this so much, Zoe. Thank
Me
you so much
too,
for
me
doing this.
too.
This is
I love that
fantastic.
perspective, Mike. I think that duality is so interesting, like to think about those things, for sure. And it's also random that I ended up working for Letterman and not Leno, considering Leno and my stepbrother didn't grow up with Leno. I
Yeah,
did. That was
yeah,
before, that was when my parents were together in New York. Like,
yep.
so it was just interesting that it all kind of goes it. But and yeah, we will get to Comedy Gives Back, but I'm in touch with both Leno and Letterman
Yeah.
because these are, I mean, I don't know. We can get into that.
Benefactors, hopefully, I would hope.
Hopefully, working on it, working on
Both
it.
both men, by the way, massive philanthropists and um for the right reason in
Yeah.
many respects. Like, I mean, the stories that I have heard that I'm not allowed to kind of say anything about when it comes to the generosity of both these guys is
Yes.
insane. It's
What
insane.
that's correct. And
Yeah.
not everybody, I mean, this really like organically leads into Comedy Gives Back. I was witness to it. I know that this happens all the time, that the successful, the one who rises to the top, helps the people because Dave Letterman would say over and over that George Miller's funny to him, or John Witherspoon's funnier than him, or Jeff Altman for that matter, like all his buddies. But he was the one because he knew how to broadcast, whatever it was,
Yep.
right? Like there's a lot, multifactorial
Sure.
of the
A lot of
reason,
X factors.
a lot of X factors, but he took care of his friends.
Yes.
And Jay does the same. And I witnessed it a lot with comedians who have made it. And what I witnessed when I was at Letterman and doing the comics, Dave, again, he was involved with the stand-ups more than he was, say, like the third lead from a Miramax movie or something. But and we knew why that was important to Harry Weinstein now. We understood now
Oh
why he was
yeah, yeah.
there, why we had to book it.
Why
But
Eric Stoltz is booked on so many of these shows. Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that's
Yeah.
right. But
No offense to Eric, love Eric.
no, it's or Annabella Shearer or
There you
whomever else,
go. Yeah.
or and um, so he would say, so he had his crew from his class of comics. So it was Jeff Altman, John Witherspoon, George Miller. Those were the three. There were a
Our boy
few.
Tom Dreesen as well.
Tom Dreesen, but yes, but Tom was being booked. Yes, that's right. And
That's true.
Tom,
Okay,
obviously.
I see where you're coming
Like,
from. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like and he said, book them twice a year. You
Yep.
don't have to book them more. You don't have to, you just don't book them less. And I sort of learned because I would do paperwork for SAG-AFTRA that after two, what do they call it? Principal appearances on a national television show, you are eligible for your health insurance.
Mhm.
And that is something that comedians don't have. They don't have unions, they don't have insurance. So that was really important. I always, and I've said to Dave to this day that he told me that. He goes, "No, I didn't." And I go, "Well, I made it up then. But I remember you told me to book twice. Maybe I filled in the blanks. All I know is you took care of your friends, and I was happy to do it." Especially like John Witherspoon, who was a prince and
Yep.
so funny. And
Well,
he would always
George Miller coming on and telling the same story every 6 months was charming to me. I
what's his
loved that. Like as a
what's his
fan,
gimmick?
I,
Well, wasn't he searching for a gimmick?
yeah, that's right. That's right. But to give, okay, so Dave made, the plausible deniability, Dave saying, okay, no, 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 it wasn't like that. That was the spirit of the show. Because talking to Paul, and not even so much Paul, but like the people behind Paul, he would do that for musicians all the time. If there was a musician that he knew was having a hard time, they would put the song into the rotation and they
Oh,
would do things like that. Yeah, there was cool stuff, not just with
I didn't
Dave
even
and
know
whatnot, but
that.
there was a lot of that's what I love about the culture of that family. Like I wanted to be part of the culture of that family through the screen. I don't know why, but I did. I
Well, he
wanted to
brought
be part.
everybody in. We were all part of the family. He brought his staff in. They were I mean, much more than his mom,
Oh
who I
yeah.
spent a charming 2 weeks in Nagano with, for the Olympics. Dorothy and I and Biff, and that was crazy.
You were in Nagano with Mrs. Letterman
With
with
Mrs.
Dorothy.
Letterman, with Biff Henderson, with the Stangles, with Celia Converse, from the talent. We weren't booking. I wasn't booking comics. I was booking the athletes. The
Right,
Tara.
of
It was
course. Yeah.
Tara
Yep.
Lipinski, Johnny Mosley. It was like the Winter Olympics. Anyway, yeah, I went there. I mean, that was a life experience to go there. I have an ounce of gold from Dave. Did you hear that? That he sent us all, everybody who went got their own gold medal, which was, I have an ounce of gold
I've
from
not
Dave.
heard that story.
I have it. I can bring it
Oh,
out.
I would love to know keepsakes that you have
Yeah.
collected over the
Oh, I'll
years
bring it
and
out.
kept.
Yeah, so it wasn't booking comics there, but definitely there, and what a wild time. It was so stressful. They're like, "Don't come home if you don't get Tara Lipinski." It's like, oh my God, we were I can't. It was really tough. And I was like, these people have trained to be in the Olympics for their entire life. They're not opposed to the show.
Yes.
I mean, we were right in the sweet spot in terms of the ages of the athletes. So it was like a no-brainer, but they weren't thinking about it. They were working on their gold medal. It was such a different. I'm like, if you were here, you would understand. If you sat on the heated toilet seat, you would understand the culture.
I it's so I always want one of the things I wonder about is if CBS didn't lose football, if CBS didn't lose the Olympics the way that they did,
Mm.
and these things, and the wave could have continued, um, you know, the types of opportunities and things that would have continued for late show. But again, a little bit of adversity is a good thing. I think that's what stretches you, and you want to be stretched, right? But I always do think about that. What might have happened if that momentum could have just continued on. But of course, bigger things, bigger forces at play. Um, Okay, I've still got a whole pile of things, but I do
Yeah.
want to move into Comedy Gives Back, and I think it's a good time to do that because
Okay.
of the philanthropy of things. You do set the table very, very well talking about. I I love stand-ups so much. I'm doing it right now locally. I'm going up to open mics and doing it, not because I want to be in a stand-up necessarily. It's because I want to have the skill under my belt, and
Good for you.
I love the hang. I love what Rogan has done with the mothership and how the green room and the hang is the most important part. Like he's centered so much of it around, he's trying to perfect, Comedy Store, Improv, these things and put it into one ecosystem. a local open mic night in Kelowna, British Columbia. When the show is over, sitting at the table, getting some chicken wings or some chicken fingers or whatever with these, it's the greatest hang in the entire world. I understand. I get it. I also know that these are many creatures who barely know where their other sock is. And now they are responsible for being a self-employed a business owner, essentially, and they are the product. And with the skill set to be a good stand-up, whether you're, on an amateur circuit, whether you're all the way at the very, very top, you got to have a bit of a different brain, and it doesn't necessarily translate to some of these things that comics that makes them a good comic. And so when I look at Comedy Gives Back, it's like, oh my God, it is like water in the desert. These people don't have a union. They don't have advocates. Yeah, they can have managers and things like that, but
At a certain level.
sure, thank you. Yes, yes. Once you get to a certain place, but there's a whole pile of comics that are below that place. And even the ones who get there don't necessarily even get the best guidance when it comes to some of these things. So the idea, it started as a social enterprise, right? But then kind of moved over, and now the idea of being able to be a support system for comics is
Is it?
that's kind of the trajectory of where you're going, and it's
That's
such a
it.
beautiful thing that you're doing here. I appreciate it. Let's talk about Comedy Gives Back and where it's at right now.
I'd love to. Yeah, it was such an organic. Again, I was at the Improv where I spent a lot of time in my early 30s when I first moved to LA, and I was still So when I moved here, I scouted for both shows. I booked still the comics for Letterman,
Yep.
and I booked the comics for Kilburn, and we got to do a lot more comics, right? So I was
Yep.
out in all the time, and two incredible women who I know from the comedy business, Jody Lieberman and Amber J. Lawson, who I knew for many years. Jody programmed Just for Laughs, and Amber J was a long native like digital comedy person with Babblegum and AOL video. Anyway, so I knew them, and they came up to me at the Improv and they said, "Do you think we can change the world through comedy?" And nobody had ever asked me that. And I can't tell you how much time I actually thought a lot about that, because I really felt in my core that my life, everything, all the good and bad, but at that point, more was comedy related, right?
Right.
So it was my career that I was making a gainful, like I was doing well in my career and I was in comedy.
Yep.
I loved it. It was my hobby. It was where I was spending lots of time. I met my husband through, he took a stand-up class with a mutual friend, and we met through that person. Like I felt it was my health and my well-being. I mean, I've been in therapy since I was 15 or 16. I mean,
Yep.
so, it's not, so I always, whatever that means, but like I also felt like I was well adapted because I had so much laughter in my life and healthy. And we just started talking about that. We believe that comedy and making sure that comedy is protected can change the vibration of this planet. And that is how we started out. And it was a for-profit production entity that put
Yep.
comedy and charity, which longtime friends, Friars Club and before, and we added technology to it. So we live stream comedy shows, and we partnered with other nonprofits. And there were two things that, and I've talked about this, two things that changed the game for us. One was Mo Mandel at Just for Laughs Comedy Festival at the bar, at the hang at 3 a.m. We're talking, and Mo was in my zeitgeist at that point, right? So he was in a series for me at I was at Warner Brothers at the time, and he was in a series for me. He had done like my son's school's fundraiser, which I used to do a lot of, and probably something else. And he said to his fellow comics, we were hanging, like, if you want to get work in comedy and not get paid, hang out with her, pointing to me. And I laughed because he had done a lot of like, recent fundraisers for me. And the next day I said to Jody Amber Jay, we need to take care of comics. They're doing these shows for us. Why are we raising money for, I mean, those are all good causes. There's no
Yep.
gain, no shame in the game of raising money for Haiti Water Project or,
Yep.
Feeding America. But there's organizations that do that, and nobody is taking care of comics. So we started talking about it. Then, the Brody Stevens
Yeah.
suicide happened, one too many, and the story was so heartbreaking because he could not, so he was doing fine. He was, he had a show on Comedy Central and HBO, and it got canceled, and he lost his
Mhm.
health insurance, and he couldn't afford the Cobra because Cobra is the biggest ripoff ever. And we weren't in existence then, and he had to change doctors and medication. And in this period of transition, he took his own life. And not to say that we could have changed the trajectory, because mental health and depression is beyond being able to pay for a year of insurance. But
Yeah.
perhaps, just perhaps, we could have paid for his Cobra for a year or two. He could have stayed with Dodgers. Again, we don't know, but it made us go like, this is something we can do. We know we could do this. And you go, Music Cares is there for musicians. Entertainment, Community Fund, formerly the Actors Fund, is there for actors, dancers, like light grip unions. Like, why aren't comedians being taken care of?
Yep.
And we know we weren't the first to think of it,
Oh.
obviously,
Yep.
but it was right time, right place. I was getting ready to leave Warner Brothers, and I would like have my lunches with like Dave Rath, and I'd say, Dave, I'm starting to work on this nonprofit, and I started working with comics. And he goes, oh, I want to do that back in the night. I go, be on my board.
There
Same
we
with Dave.
go.
It really organically, because we know they are without resources, and they are not super high functional people to begin with.
Yes.
Some of
Yeah,
them, some
exactly.
of
Yeah.
them, the good ones. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Um, and so we've been on this trajectory to create a safety net and figure out how to run a nonprofit. I mean, we are still three comedy chicks that are, figuring out how to run a nonprofit. We're also three business owners, a nonprofit that go, we don't know everything. And we've
Yep.
worked with a nonprofit consultant to help us shift our organization, because here's the goal. I want Comedy Gives Back to be Music Cares. I want Comedy Gives Back to be Entertainment Community Fund. The Community Fund has been around 125 years.
Wow.
The Music Cares has been around. I mean, so we are trying to build the foundation of this house that will stay and be built long after I'm gone, right?
It's a
And
legacy project.
it's a legacy project, and
Yeah.
we're in the very nascent state of it. And what we're doing now is, we do our comedy fundraisers. We do some small ones in clubs.
Yep.
We have one coming up in New York on November 13th. We did one in August in honor of Brody Stevens on 818. We always do it. And that was 4 years in the making. And it was like, as a booker, like, I still get very, Bill Burr said yes, Robbie Hoffman said yes, Eleanor Kerrigan said yes. So we had like the people who knew Brody and stars, and we sold out, and we made a great amount of money for a club night. So that's one of our models. So we have one coming up in New York on November 13th at Gotham as part of the New York Comedy Festival. Um, Buy your tickets now. And we're trying to figure out our bigger night, like, the Grammys have the Person of the Year, or the
Yep.
Music have the Person of the Year the night before the Grammys, and the Motion Picture Fund Home has their Oscar night before the Oscars. We don't have a comedy awards like that. And so we're trying to figure out what that, is going to be. And we'll have a nice announcement in December about an event that we can have in honor of Richard Lewis, that will be in 2026. So soon to announce on that. But we're really figuring out how to grow our business so it can live long after us. And I've recently become the executive director, and I'm working more full time on it. And I never thought my career would be asking for money or helping comics. I mean, I've always helped comics. That's the funny thing. Like, in
Of
some
course.
ways, I get a
Yep.
job, or I book
Yep.
them, or so. I had a funny story. You got this, but I was in front of the Improv the other night. I went to
I'm
the
not
open mic
cutting nothing,
there.
Zoe, unless you tell me to. I'm not
I
cutting
went to the
nothing.
open mic. I mean, it just might be boring, but I went to the open mic, and I was outside the club after, and there were three comics, two of which were on the open mic who did quite well.
Yep.
And there was a third, and I said, "Oh, great job tonight on da da da." And I said, "Are you a comic too?" And he's like, they kind of started a little comedy sketch amongst themselves. They had no interest talking to a 58-year-old woman. Let me just tell you, like, they didn't know I used to be a booker.
I
They
was gonna
didn't
say they had no idea who they were
They
talking
had no
to.
idea, and that's okay too, because
Sure.
my, credits. But it was funny. I felt the energy. I was like, okay, how do I get out of this conversation? I was just, wanted to compliment them. I had a question for one of them, and they were kind of doing this kind of thing about the third guy. He was well known. They were sort of saying he's not, it was a little bit like, I didn't have the information to know if they were joking or not, so I just played along. And
Sure.
and then I said, oh, I'm going to go back inside, but I just want to make sure, that I'm a co-founder of Comedy Gives Back. And the vibe changed. They were like, "What?" The one guy, the one who was kind of trying to dupe me, he was like, "Oh my God, I used to do your Zoom meditations during pandemic and I got a grant." The other one had been on the phone with somebody we're currently helping with mental therapy and said, "Look who I was just on the phone with." Like, and that was a new experience because, we're working hard to get the word out, right? Working hard to help as comedians. And now we've been in it for a number of years, so it is changing. Like, it's maybe you haven't gotten help, but your friend has, right?
Yes.
Like before, it wasn't even the friend. It was kind of like four people removed. Like the fact that they were like, that's where I had juice for them was unexpected and delicious. Not to use a food pun of delicious and juice, but they really like it was so amazing. They were like, oh my God. Like, I don't think at that point, if I said, I used to book comics they wouldn't care. The fact I
Yeah.
was Comedy is Back was it for them. They needed to know no more. And that's,
Isn't that fantastic? Like that's again, sometimes the universe drops little pieces of little tidbits for us to take as like an entire meal of gratefulness. Like that must have felt so good that
yeah.
that they knew you as the comedy gives back person rather than, all the other things that we've talked about this entire time.
That's right. All
That's
my years of, it was like I was like a proud parent, right? I
yeah,
kind
that's
of
the
felt
universe
like,
giving you a clue saying you're doing the right thing.
yeah, that
Yes.
too. I mean, boy, oh boy, I'm also an independent producer since I left Warner Brothers in 2019. And there's no flow. There's no, like, Comedy is Back is where there's flow. Like, there is
Yes.
need and there is a community that has yet to completely step up in the way I know they will, because we have been building this foundation. And I want to build a senior home. I want to have a senior home for comics. You don't think Dave Letterman, Jay Leno would want that in on that? Come on, like not to live there, but to
Oh,
right, like to but I know that's soon. I know that's not a if, it's a when. And we're working on it. So when it's time,
yeah.
everything's ready to
I
receive.
love hearing I love big vision and big thinking and that kind of thing. It's so cool to hear that from the bystander standpoint. I go, when is the Comedy Gives Back Comedy Festival going to show up? Because I assume that that's going to be, a lot of these cities have done it very, very, very well. You talk about Just for Laughs, Montreal for so long. These things. To me, that is like, it's so chocolate and peanut butter. Let's put them together. Is that something that's on the horizon for you? Have
I
you thought
don't
about this?
I don't think our own festival. We do partner with festivals because
Yep.
we took a look. We're not reinventing the wheel. Like Music Cares has been doing this, and that's the most apples to apples, even more than Entertainment Fund.
Yep.
And somebody from Music Cares is on our board and really has helped us fill in. And the only reason I sort of speak to that um, is because I forgot. Hold on, then we'll let it out.
It's going to come back.
Right, exactly. The Music Cares
You're not going to
thing.
do a festival because.
Oh, festival, right. So what they do at Music Cares, whenever there's a gathering of musicians, is they have a recovery meeting every day.
Yep.
Like Grammy week, they make sure they have bubble, so that's kind of where we started. We're like, okay, we're gonna have a recovery meeting every day at a festival, at the comedy festival. We'll do maybe a gathering of some sort. It was mildly successful. We've had some, where nobody showed up, where a lot of people showed up. So I don't think we'll have our own festival, but we would love to be partnered with every festival because what our experience is. So, our company has this duality, right? Where you are,
Mhm.
we're public facing, like, hi, bystander, being a comic is hard. And for
Yes.
every Kevin Hart and, Bill Burr that there are thousands of others who are working comedians, and life happens and they don't have the safety net and there is no union but so that that I keep losing my I know I we keep going deep and then I keep losing my place. But that's so oh
So
man.
as opposed to like these quiet days, the things that you do, the recovery days,
Yeah. Oh,
things
like
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So we were doing that and we probably will continue to, and that, so when we go to these festivals and we do, what we call kind of our comic only events, where we've started to do where we, as the co-founders, go and tell the comics what our services are, how
Hmm.
easy it is to sign up.
Hmm.
The conversion rate from that meeting, and it might be at some festivals 30 people, and like at Netflix, as a joke, we gave our information, we gave beanies to every comic, high and low and high level, with a card of what our stuff is and what our and we did our recovery meeting. The conversion from festivals to comics using our services has been really powerful.
Yeah.
So we continue to show up at festivals because that is where we can really talk to comedians.
Yeah.
We also like to do shows and have a fundraiser like we're doing in New York on November 13th
Yep.
at Gotham as part of the New York Comedy Festival. It's kind of a sprawl of a festival. It doesn't quite feel the same, but we want to be part of festivals, probably not throw one, but make sure we're there as a
Yeah.
presence that people know, because comics are skeptical. They feel it's probably they're not going to be eligible for it, and we get to tell them what they could be eligible for. We get to say, like, there are lots of things, and if you have, so that's how we see ourselves getting more involved with festivals, always having a show, always having kind of some presence there, like maybe material to the
Yeah.
comedians so they know, and in backstage, put in all our kind of resources and everything. That's really important in the festival circuit.
I,
I
I
mean,
hear
and yeah,
I
go ahead.
hear that, and especially where you're at right now in the life cycle of the charity, I get that. My wife came from the nonprofit world, and she's building what she's building now, in the social enterprise. She kind of went the exact opposite. Her frustration in the nonprofit world is so many times you've got these amazing nonprofits with an amazing vision, an amazing mandate, and fundraising becomes the challenge. I look at you and go, okay, here's a mandate where you literally have, if you had the right, promoter or person that knows how to put on events or things like that, you have an endless stream of revenue from a fundraising standpoint, because so many of these comics would believe in what you do. I assume the people who are on top, again, look at what you're doing, going, this is the most amazing thing, because they weren't always on top. They know what they went through, and if we could make things easier, and then of course there's the big things, the Brody things, like that's I mean, that there's that, the extreme, but the people who are like uncomfortable, the number of people who are uncomfortable and they don't necessarily need to be, I just look at what you're doing and going, okay, well, yeah, you guys could easily have a festival that everything just went towards comedy gives back once
My
every
God,
couple of years or something.
from your mouth to the book and God's
Yeah.
ears.
Yeah, like
It's not, you know what they say, it's really simple, but it's not easy.
100%. 100%.
Like the mentality also of comedians, the psyche, not for everybody, right? I'm not going to
Yeah.
speak gross terms, like some of them really make it that 1% and feel probably they're comfortable for the rest of their life. And then there's
Right.
probably like the 5% who like worry, it's let's just say this, some people just kind of grow up with the giving back mentality,
Right.
and a lot of people don't.
Gotcha.
And so we're educating comics even about like how to give back. Like, and they sit, the 1%, 5% sit at the end of the year with their business managers, and they have to give away money. And, we just want to be part of that conversation because it seems to like duh,
Hmm.
yet not duh yet. I'm waiting for
Right.
it, like where it is. And again, not if, when.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, that
Like
one keystone is going to go
it's
and the
the
avalanche will come.
correct.
Yep.
Correct. And I believe that with our comedy club network, which is incredibly important, that clubs around the country are partnered with us, not only to maybe give a roundup or a percentage of tickets, but for our resources to be posted backstage. So our programs and resources are only as good as people using them. So if
Yes.
people in Illinois don't know about us, or Ohio because we're living in New York and LA, like that is not good.
Right.
So the clubs are super important. And Levity hasn't signed on yet. I'm going to do a public shaming
Yep.
that this club, this company that bought the Improv, and they're an
Yep.
amazing company, and they're very good to me. And the LA Hollywood Improv does lots of fundraisers for us. they have still yet to come on and give us like a per ticket or some, and we're in conversation again. I know it will happen, but shame on you.
Yeah, well, let's throw it.
Right? Like, what? Come on.
When
Okay,
I
anyway.
saw you, it was at one of these events
Oh,
during the
that's right.
Netflix is a Joke Comedy Festival. It was a meditation for other comics, and I got to tell you, LA's always got crazy energy. I've been I'm a giant Kings fan, and so throughout my life, I would go to LA periodically as much as I possibly could, and of course Disneyland and all that. LA and California, that part of California has an energy to it. During the Netflix is a Joke Comedy Festival, and I've been the last two to see Dave. Um,
He's coming
it has
back.
a different energy to it. It's got a crazy energy to it. It really, really does. Like I could feel even that day when I walked in. I know the Comedy Store does have energy to it too, but I could feel in that day, I
Yeah.
could feel
Yeah.
that the comics that were there for that meditation were really grateful to be away from. It was the eye of a hurricane, is what it was.
Yeah.
And
That's what we see our role at festivals, like that safe space, that place that they can go. And, if in recovery, no alcohol, if in too much schmoozing and too much networking, they could, and given those tools to take out on out on the road with them. But yes,
yeah.
that was a really special one, Mike. That really was. It did have a different energy than a few,
Oh,
many
really? Okay. I don't know. I
times.
just came in and I'm like I'm having like it was the most. I thought going out for breakfast with Morty, and then I'll tell you off camera. We had somebody showed up at our table. I'll tell you afterwards who it was and all that. And it was that was I left there going, this is the craziest experience I've ever had, and I needed to like decompress from it, and I did. Um, and then I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna go take some pictures at the Comedy Store. And literally went from that yeah, like, and then I had I was gonna hang out with Hillary Rollins all day the next day. Like I had a great phenomenal time down there, but then going to this again, the eye of a hurricane, this event, it was unbelievable what you and Tim set up. Tim Duffy, shout out to Tim Duffy, by the
Oh,
way.
shout out
Love
to
him
very
so
talented.
much.
Oh,
If ever you want to look at getting into meditation of any sort, and especially functional meditation where,
that's right.
it's not just woo-woo stuff, it's practical in the way
Super
that it
practical.
applies.
Yep.
Look up Tim Duffy. Everybody shout out
And
to Tim Duffy. I'm just going to throw
shout
that
out
out
to
there
Tim
real
Duffy. And
quick.
if you're a comedian who wants to learn one-on-one, come to Comedy Gives Back, fill out an application and ask for a grant to cover meditation, and you could do one-on-one with Tim.
Oh, there you
Because
go.
it is
That,
such
yeah, that's
practical application. I agree. And it's not like he grew up on an ashram, right? He
no.
did stand up. He was a producer. He understands. And I just love the way he talks about, my old friends. Yeah, shout out to Tim Duffy.
Very,
Definitely.
very much so. So,
Yeah.
what you guys are doing is so important. Is it possible? Like, I had I've got an interesting. I've got a foot in the world of pro wrestling. Um, I'm a financial planner by trade. In 2013, I wanted to give back to the community a little bit. And I didn't want to do a golf tournament or a walk because I'm not that guy. I'm just not that guy. So, me and a business partner, we put on a pro wrestling show. We didn't know what was going to happen, but we raised $10,000 in one night for the BC Children's Hospital. Fantastic, awesome. What I wasn't prepared for, though, is that wrestling fans are very much like stand-up fans in a lot of ways. And wrestlers are actually wrestlers and stand-up comedians actually are very similar in a lot of ways, in the self-employed part. But we had these fans saying to us, "When's the next show? When's the next show? When's the next show?" And over the course of 6 years, we raised $250,000 for local
Wow.
charities just with this little wrestling show that we had. And the
Amazing.
gratification of it is amazing. And you look at what these people do and how they connect with their audience and whatnot. And a lot of them are just independent. Many of them are just going check to check from show to show. Um, and the natural question is, could you ever unionize this thing? And I just feel like pro wrestlers and comedians, and maybe there are other, unique people in the world of entertainment like that. I don't know if they ever could unionize it. Do you think it's possible?
No, and I'll tell you, you were curious about the Riyadh Festival,
Oh,
Riyadh.
hey, if we could talk about Rhea, I'm very curious. Yes, very much so
All I
about
know
your
is
take on that.
that what happened is the exact reason. This is what I for sure say. The exact reason why comedians will never have a union.
That makes so much sense.
Unions are about putting the collective well-being over the individual well-being,
Yes.
and comics need to perform, and they will perform, and they'll perform anywhere they want. A challenge, Middle East, Saudi Arabia, give me the challenge. Like
Yeah.
that's the ego piece of it. The money piece, those people didn't need that money. Much like David Cross, I loved his letter. Well done, David Cross. I believed every moment, and and there's also like they're just fucking comics, and they wanted a new audience,
Yeah.
and right, like, and we will never have a union. I think that speaks that when I was like we were thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, that's why we'll never have a union because I
Yeah.
just they're individualists. We could have maybe have a guild where people, but also people told me at the very beginning, don't become a health exchange, a health insurance exchange, whatever you do. Like, so we'll pay
Right.
your health.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
That makes so much sense. There was a time very early, and again, I don't want to stay in pro wrestling, but I know a lot about it. It's weird some of the things I know a lot about, completely useless stuff. There was a time right as WrestleMania was germinating, it was becoming a thing, where there was going to be a get together of all the biggest wrestlers around, and we're maybe going to do this. And Vince McMahon came in and said, okay, anybody who does this is going to be like, he squashed it, just squashed it. And it took nothing to squash it because of exactly what you just said. Because you give somebody a little bit more, if you're self-employed and you're looking for yourself, which these people are,
Yeah.
that's exactly why it never happened there. And, here we are 40, 43, 44 years later, and you're saying the same thing about comedians. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think about, to bring up Riyadh for a second here, because I mean, kind of ripped from the headlines, if you want to talk about it, I'm super curious about your perspective on it, because here you are, you were there back in the day during Dice Clay back then. Like comedy's always had controversy to it, and as it's scaled up, so too has the controversy. That's the way I see it, anyway. But during that time, political correctness was where it was. The wall fell. Metallica goes and plays in Russia, and everybody celebrates. It's like, yes, we're spreading whatever
Ah,
you want to call it, freedom, Americana. I'm Canadian, but North Americana, freedom. We're spreading freedom around the world. There's rock and roll playing on the other side of the Iron Curtain. Yeah, let's kick some ass. That's a very much a Gen X way of looking at it. A couple of generations have come by now. I would submit that if this would have happened back then, and all of these comics could go to Saudi Arabia, and some of them say some of the things that they did say, there would be people who would look at that as a victory. And yet now we live in a culture where things are a little bit topsy-turvy, and it's not so black and white, perhaps. I'm curious about your perspective on it.
I love that history. What year was that?
Which one? The Metallica one?
Yeah, Metallica.
Metallica played Russia. I want to say
Yeah, so
92.
different generation. I think like that's really interesting, right? Like spreading it. And I will say that I went through the spectrum. You don't have to look it up, Mike. That's fine. It's just in the 90s. Like I was just
Oh, I'm
trying to
curious
how
now.
far
But in
along.
91, there he is.
91. Yeah, definitely different generation. And initially, I mean, I kind of have gone sort of around and about on this,
I can imagine you have.
and I've talked about it with a lot of people. And I have, as I mentioned, I teach a class of juniors who are comedic art majors, and they love comedy. They want to talk about it. And we talked all about it. We talked about David Cross, and they're young. They're not so PC in the sense they're not the wokest of, like, there I have three future comedy writers, stand-ups, women. I mean, they're more than women, but they love Louis C.K. They're doing like their report on Louis. Like, so it's right.
Yep.
Like they're not like over, overly. I was like, that's safe in this class. I booked him. We can talk about him being funny. Um, so I wasn't sure, and I felt like it was probably when I first came out. I read the whole David Cross thing, and I
Yep.
really that resonated for me. It did feel a little bit unfortunate. And I felt like these are the people who scream about freedom of speech. That's the hypocrisy of it, that they were muffled or muzzled into what they could talk about. And they said, okay. And these are comics that I think on here would say, screw you, I'm not going to be. So it's a double standard. It was unnecessary. They didn't need to, right? None of these people needed like David, the fourth house or the boat or whatever.
Sure.
Now, thought about it a lot, kind of talked, and And then I saw photos online, on social media of the audiences laughing. And back to let's transform the world through comedy. Nothing makes me happier than seeing faces of all colors, of all ethnicities, of all, whether they're sitting next to me at the Improv or on, it makes me happy.
Yeah.
And that is the vibration that started my whole organization and what keeps me loving comedy. And when I saw those faces laughing, I said, I changed, like, again, I don't even have, I'm not so opinionated. It's complicated for sure.
Yes.
I do
Yes.
think it's a generational thing, and it's unfortunate that the woke thing has become so incredibly like twisted.
Yeah.
And comics and their freedom of speech. I mean, when I worked on Mencia and Ned Carlos would say, "You don't let me say anything." I go, "Have you watched your fucking show? You get to say everything." Comics go to this, you're muzzling like so fast, like they're ready to for the fight, even when you're like, "You're not, I'm not fighting with you on this." Like you're
Right.
getting what you want. Like they're just, you know, um, I also think like, with the rise of the brosphere and and then them, being the ones going over there or whatever, and when maybe winning the election. I mean, that's a whole nother piece of
Yeah.
it. Let's be clear. Let's not give comics so much import. Now, this is coming from somebody who believes good comedy is a social, like, reflector, a
Yeah.
mirror, a truth teller. I believe that they are important. And yet, comics are low functioning, can only do one job. And if somebody was like, I can only do the garbage, but I'm going to give you my opinion about the of
Yeah.
politics, like, you're not going to listen to them. Stop
I
listening
think it
to
was I
kids.
think it was Brennan who said, "Okay, let's ask the clowns." Like
Yeah, yeah,
like
right.
what?
Right. Like,
Yes.
again, I really appreciate the level and the place comics hold is a greater place than they used to. It's a full-on business now, huge business,
Yeah.
comedy, of course. Culturally, it
Yeah.
is pop culture and beyond. Live comedy is doing great, specials, all of that. And yeah, but they're comics, and so I go back, not back and forth, but it did move me when I saw the photos of people laughing, and I was like, that really makes it clear that that's a good thing in this world, that
But,
people there who probably haven't had a lot of ability to laugh get to laugh. I don't love
right?
the hypocrisy of it. I don't love that the government paid for it, because if it was somebody else, then maybe it wouldn't have been the same thing, because it wouldn't have been the government holding it, who are the,
Right.
human rights, violators, right? If it was just so, but anyway,
Well,
and like I said, I don't feel like I have like that, I was very like very much, I read the David Cross thing, felt very similarly like that's
yeah.
really unfortunate and what a problem it is. And then I just sort of saw these laughing faces and I said, yes. I don't know.
I see it from both sides too, but I don't have, the pedigree that you do when it comes to this world. One of the reasons why I was so grateful when you said, "Yeah, I could bring this up to you," is because, again, we're talking about this duality. Like you have been there from the beginning with all a comedy, not just clean comedy, but you've also been an executive with a company that it's like, okay, no, we've got mandates here. We've got to be specific in what we produce and how we produce it. And you have audience, or you have affection for both sides of the fence. It's not like you don't like either one of these people, and when they fight, it's probably a hard thing. But the thing is, we're moving the conversation forward, which I love. I really am grateful that you were able. I figured you'd be conflicted because you've done things. These are people that are your friends, but you've also been in the position and see it from other sides. Like, it makes sense to me. For me, looking at stand up I will. I'm scared about losing freedom of speech, and in Canada, we don't have the same freedom of speech. Um, um, uh, you know, we don't have this. We don't have the Bill of Rights. So while we are allowed to say what we say and whatnot, I believe our freedom of speech um, is very, very tied to America's freedom of speech. And to me, if comedians are supposed to be anything at all, you don't give them specifics because of, like you said, comedians. Many of them are crazy people, and I say that in the most beautiful way possible. I wish
100%.
I could have a little bit more of that crazy. I really do. So I'm not, but at the same time, if you could give them one job, it would be to be guardians of freedom of speech. Like,
Yeah.
because the audience will decide, and it gets manipulated. I love Chappelle going up there. Am I canceled? To a full Madison Square Garden or whichever arena it was he was in that
Yeah.
night, because the public opinion will, people will stop putting their dollars out there, or they will stop putting their eyeballs on the product, or
That's
whatever.
right. They'll move off of it if it's not working for them. And look, I don't think comics get canceled. I think there's consequences. And
That's
I think that's it. There's no true cancellation. There's just consequences. Like Louis C.K. just needed to figure out how to talk to his audience directly, and he's
yes,
probably doing fine. I don't know what his conscience is or feels like, but financially, if that's,
yeah,
there's consequences. There's not cancellation truly in comedy. And I will say, Mike, the freedom of speech thing, I'm very afraid of it too. And when we started Comedy is Back in 2019 to
yep.
support comedians and became a 501c3, very like confidently, my partners and I said, good thing we'll never have to worry or raise money for First Amendment problems like in the Lenny Bruce day. I mean, it seemed far reaching in 2019, even
That's
with
5 years
Trump
ago, 6 years
5
ago.
years ago, even with Trump in office once,
Yep,
it wasn't under attack like it is.
yep.
And I can't believe in a mere 5 years that we probably will get a call because, I mean, people are losing their jobs for saying something about Charlie Kirk.
I know.
Who's not to say that a comic is their whole social media, which is how they communicate with would not be taken down. It's possible and it's terrifying. And that is why comedy is so vitally important because they do speak their truth, freedom of, speech. And it is in our constitution. I mean, it's protected. And comics will be the first to lean into it. And I mean, I love them for it. I love my like that feeling when you're watching Chappelle or Burr and Louis for that matter years ago where, they'd say a premise and your fucking sphincter got tight and you're like, oh God, I'm gonna hoot this bit. And then the skill and the expertise that they have to take us through and go, Bill Burr, you did it again. You made me
You
laugh.
landed the friggin' plane. Yes.
There's nothing better than that type of comedy. And they walk the line and they don't always hit the line. And I will also say, I don't think comics are good at self accountability or apologizing. I think every apology has been horrendous. And that speaks to, I think, who they are. Like, you're going to do a joke about child, like gun violence and a fat kid like Louis? Like, nobody has come on. And I guess to say you're sorry means you're culpable. I think you can apologize for the part you are responsible for. I hate when people
Yeah.
say, like, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I go, you're not responsible for how I felt. You can say, God, I'm sorry that what I said made you. I was like, have
Yeah.
some friggin' accountability. They don't. So that is a little bit disappointing. And when you hear people even having it, you go, oh, that's something different. I'm trying to think about who, not comics, where they actually said like, oh yeah, I made a mistake, or I wish I didn't say that. Like they double down on that freedom of speech and they double down on offend. Like I'm not going to kowtow to this That's it. It's like, why does the audience all become so oversensitive because I guess people who blame it on the Democrats. I blame it on a generation of
I
sensitive, woke
We've
people,
allowed them to
not
get soft.
Democrats. Yeah.
I'm softer than my baby boomer parents. And who are a lot softer than my depression era grandparents. And I mean, what is that thing? Hard times make hard people. Hard people make soft times make soft people. I think that there's a little bit of that going around. I think that there is I think that there is probably a lack of vision when it comes to this stuff. People are getting, like, you look at the word trauma. Like, I know that you understand trauma because you are very much one of these people that wants to help heal, and you're an energetic person. I can just tell all the stuff about you. You're energetic. You've been in therapy since you were 14, whatever. There's big T trauma and there's small T trauma, and there's a whole generation of people that are using that word that
So
it's ruining the
right.
word for me.
That's Well, yeah, and people go, I'm OCD, I'm so ADD. Like, just because you don't have like you don't have a good attention span doesn't mean you have AD. There is an overuse of language and like that. I, I almost, and I've been in therapy since 15 or 14, and I love it. And I think the world is a better place. And I think we've hit a tipping point of people almost over talking about it. And that's
Yeah.
like, that is a tipping point I never thought I would get to, where I was like, oh, people just have to like buck up a little bit. It's like, there is this like, oh, well, oh, I'm traumatized,
Yeah. I'm
and
triggered. I'm traumatized. Okay.
triggered, I'm traumatized.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what that movie is with Julia Roberts, but she says you're not always supposed to feel comfortable. To Io a dear bit, in that movie. I don't know. I think it might be about a Me Too thing. I don't know. But I was like, yeah, it's not always comfortable, right? Yeah. So
So
I
this,
think that a little, yeah,
I,
overused,
I
but
I very, very much appreciate you kind of opening up about that, and I'm glad that it is complicated, because it's not like I remember. Okay, so I'll tell a little story if that's okay. The last time I saw Letterman live was April 20th, 2015. That was a Monday night. On the Saturday night, I'm at the Comedy Cellar, and three people get bumped off of our card. Um, and Aziz Ansari was one of them. Amy Schumer was another one, and Louis C.K. was another one. If you're a comedy fan, not a bad time to get to the 10 o'clock show, the Cellar on a Saturday night. And they were all getting ready for things. Aziz, I think, was working on some new stuff. Amy was getting ready for her panel on Letterman on the Monday night, which I got to see. Like,
oh,
that's the
how
kind of stuff
great
I would have dreamt about when I was a kid. Like, I love the mechanics of it. I loved watching her turn stand up
into the
into panel. It
nice. I
was
like, right.
beautiful. I also, hindsight being 2020, realized there was probably a segment producer in that room that night, um,
Maybe, yeah.
going over that with her. But the other one was Louis. And my wife is pretty conservative when it comes to comedians and whatnot. And you talk about, the idea of landing the plane. Louis was working on what would end up being his SNL monologue probably 3 weeks later. And it
Mhm.
was about a child molester. And I remember the child molester's name, John Baptiste. And he talked about growing up in the 70s. And the moment he brought out the fact that he was about to talk about a child molester in his bit, I
Yeah.
could feel my wife's energy suddenly turn cold.
Yeah. Right. And the whole audience a little bit like that sphincter
I'm
tightening.
certain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were just sensitive to your
I'm like,
wife, and her sphincter is representative of 50 sphincters in the room. So
yeah. And I'm listening to him going, "Oh shit, are we going to land the plane?" Like, immediately, as soon as he said that, I'm like, and of course he does, and it was so funny, and it was awesome, and it was great. The people who don't land the plane, they call it a plane crash for a reason. Like you say, consequences, right? If you're gonna talk about abortion, if you're gonna talk about these things, you better damn well be funny. You better damn well land the
correct.
plane.
I think that's really ultimately it. If you're not funny enough, people are going to be offended. If you're funny enough, people will forgive it, it seems, maybe, at least the fans. I know. Yeah, you got to land the plane, man. And he does. He's very skilled in that way, Louis. Yeah.
Yeah,
He was,
he can do a bit, and not only does it work in a special, he can monologue for Saturday Night Live and do that very same bit and land it. And to me, that I honestly think currently Shane Gillis is doing a good job of that as well. I think he throws a lot of plane. Oh, is the plane going to crash or not?
and
And
Dylan a little
oh
bit too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Agree. I agree. Yep. Where you're kind of like, and Bill Burr, of course,
Oh,
always.
he's the master of it.
Yeah, he's the master of it for sure. And I do kind of think that some comics less skilled throw shit out and go, "You're not ready. You should be in training wheels." Like, you better have and look, you have to look. You're the business of failures, right? Like comedy, and in good and bad. In the sense, you try shit, it doesn't work, and you'll get better. Maybe be one of those voices. Which I do want to talk about failure and Jimmy Fallon and
Oh,
Letterman.
please. Oh, look at
Is
you
that
knowing how
okay?
to
Like we
circle
change
back.
just, is that okay? Like I feel, is that all
Please
right? Okay.
circle back. Oh, I love it.
So, about in August, I'm watching Jimmy Fallon, The Tonight Show, and Judd Apatow's on promoting his book, even though it was early.
Hmm.
And Judd said, I'm a comedy nerd, and he's showing the book, and he saved everything. And Jimmy brings out stuff. Did you see this, Mike? Did you see this?
Yeah,
That
I did,
brought
but I
out-
want to keep going. Yeah, please.
So he
Yeah.
brought out like stuff he held on to, and one of the things was his first set that he won his comedy competition in Poughkeepsie, New York, and the second thing he brought out was a rejection letter from me when I was a talent assistant. I wasn't even the booker yet, saying thank you for sending your tape. We're going to pass this time. Here's your tape back or whatever.
Yeah.
And Fallon held on to it all this time, and the truth is, Jimmy. And by the way, it's not once I passed on Jimmy, it was twice. And because that was the first time before I booked it myself. Then I went to the Improv on one of my trips to LA.
Yep.
I know it's 17 people because Randy Siegel called me and said, you have to see this young kid I just started working with. His name's Jimmy Fallon, blah, blah, blah. I said, Randy, I am seeing 16 people. You're not being a good manager by putting your client 17. I'll be tired. The audience is going to be tired.
Yep.
Don't do it. You have to see him. You have to see him. Well, I acquiesced and I saw him and he killed because,
Yep.
he is Jimmy, but it was the trolls. It was the same. So
Did he do an Adam Sandler impression?
I can't remember which
Something
one.
like that, but high energy stuff like that, though.
That's right. And it was
it'll
the
wake you up
troll,
even at
the
17.
music, the impression.
Yep.
So
Yep.
clearly not Dave's cup of tea.
Yeah.
Clearly crowd pleasing, not necessarily Dave's cup of tea. So on the show, you see like Jimmy brought this up and held on to it. And I know that if I booked him, and either one, if I say I booked him, he might possibly have not gotten SNL and might possibly have not been the host of the Tonight Show. And I'm not saying it's because my power is such, but here's the scenario. I book him for some reason, much like I got bamboozled to put him on 17, not bamboozled, but you guys do stuff. You go, okay, oh my God, he did so well. Dave, you have to see this. This is like another Jim, whatever, put him on. And then it fizzles out because Dave doesn't like him. And then he becomes like blacklist. People like, ew, did you see that comic on Letterman? He bombed.
Yep.
Dave didn't like him. And he might not have gotten, SNL and then the Tonight Show. Like, I think about that and I talk to my students about it. Like that failure, that rejection for him is actually what saved his ass. So when he got to be back on the show, he got to do it as panel. And if he went to do and so I think that it's divine. David Miner shared no, I probably shouldn't share his story, but about not representing somebody and he felt a little FOMO because a lot of people wanted him and they wanted him and he had a pass. And ultimately they got SNL. And he said if he took them on, that he probably wouldn't have pitched them to SNL. And they're huge, right? Like, so to aspiring comedians out there, we don't know what the beginning of the story or the end of the story is, right? Like, so that for Dave Miner, who's a very powerful in-demand manager, he let this go and it worked the right way because he had managers who pitched him to SNL and they got an SNL and then they went on to, so you never fucking know. And the fact that I just knew he wasn't Dave's cup of tea. I mean, to imagine impressions like a troll doll music hack, I would for sure be fired, and Jimmy's like amazing and delightful and funny and super talented. And it's the best rejection he ever got. I hope he feels
Now, that being said, I want to talk about Fallon and Letterman for a second because this is interesting. I've got a list of my favorite panel moments on Letterman throughout all the years. Fallon actually made the list. It was when he was hosting Late Night. So it was before the Late Shift 2 happened. It was hosting Late Night and it was around Olympic time. And he came and I believe he had a double segment. And in that double segment, 2 massive impressions and one of them with a guitar. And it delighted Dave to no end. But one of the impressions was Tom Brokaw, and it was during the Olympics when Jimmy was over the Olympics, and it was a story about that happened there, a very embarrassing story that happened with now Caitlyn Jenner. And then after he told that story, he did his Tom Brokaw impression, which broke Dave up. Like, isn't it great when you could watch Dave actually break up?
Tom was like a friend of the show. Like,
and
that,
he was a friend of the show.
That's
yes.
so specific. That is
there
in Dave's wheelhouse, right?
There you go.
So
would that
cute.
have happened if you would have booked him? No fucking way. There's no way he would have done a Tom Brokaw impression.
Right, not as stand-up, right?
Right.
If I had seen he had a Tom Brokaw and I was fucking going like, God, put the Tom Brokaw one in safe. But he got to do it on panel and he got to present it as like, And again, I don't know. Maybe Dave it would have tickled his funny bone, but certainly not in the mandate of what I was,
No,
taxed book
it
at the
took
time.
it took a lot of seasoning to be
Yeah,
able to
and
put that on as an accompaniment to Dave. And then the other thing he did was an impression of he got the guitar out and he did the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme as Neil Young. And it was Neil Young, and it was so good. It was fantastic. There's no way that young Jimmy Fallon, like you think about Jimmy when he was on with Tina on SNL,
oh
that
yeah,
guy would not have been ready.
yeah.
Um, I am very cognizant of your time here, and I'm grateful.
Oh, okay.
Can I give you a couple little ask Zoe if she has any
Yeah.
stories about these people?
Yes.
Can I do
Yes.
that, please? Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I would like I don't know if you're just being really gracious to me or if this is like I love this and I would love to have you back on because I have a
Oh,
million questions I could still
I,
ask.
I'll totally come back on if you
Thank you.
want.
Oh,
Funny.
thank you, thank you, thank
Yeah.
you, thank you, thank you. Um, do you have any Norm Macdonald stories?
I have one Norm Macdonald story, and it was also another moment where I felt very much in show business,
Hmm.
and I almost felt like I was fired. And when I did those staff stories, I realized I think I thought I was going to get fired a lot more. Like I was like, wow, that is like the refrain of everything. I don't know why I thought I was going to get fired.
It's been a recurring theme with some of the yes, yes,
Somebody to be right.
yes.
So when Norm did the impression of Dave on SNL,
Yeah.
um, I had a guest fallout on that Monday, and I was very close with the people at SNL. We would always swap notes, like who's in town, who's your host, because we'd
Hmm.
have holes and,
Yep.
very tight TV community in New York. And I said to his manager or to the SNL person, I was like, do you think we should have Norm do date like on the show? Like, is that, And she was like, let's try it. And so we booked it and he did it. And we all sat there, including Norm, who was fearful, I think, for a moment that this could backfire because it was so spot on. And so, yeah, that was just a moment of a booking for the Norm and his impression. And I found Norm so incredibly funny and
Hmm.
kind and sweet. I don't,
Yeah.
and Daniel booked him all the time. I mean, and produced him. And I think I probably did him for a couple times, but he didn't I don't think he ever did stand up when I was booking comics, but he definitely came on as Dave on that Monday after, which was really felt like walking the tightrope,
Yep.
sort of like moment, of the moment booking,
I remember it as a fan. I remember at the very end of the panel interview, Dave going, "Okay, okay, do
All
it,
right,
do it," and he
that's
makes
right.
him do
I
it. And it
was
was
like, oh,
my favorite Norm panel. That might be my second favorite one. Obviously, his last stand up 3 days before Dave retired or whatever it was. That was the best, as far as I'm concerned. That's the best television show stand up appearance of all time. Was Norm's last set on Late Show. But the genius booking, and I think this is after your time. Norm gets fired from Weekend Update, and the night that he gets fired, he's on Letterman, and he's talking all about it, and they're talking about is it Bob Wright, I think, or whatever, and Lauren, and he gets fired, and he's on Letterman talking about it on the
I
Monday
remember that.
that it
Yeah.
happened. That was phenomenal as well. I have to do this because it's again part of me growing up. I didn't. I've talked a lot about Andy on this show, and for people who don't know your history with Andy Kaufman, I would love you if you wouldn't mind. I know you've repeated it to a lot of people, but like
Yes.
Andy Kaufman was your babysitter,
Yeah. Andy
sort of,
Kaufman was, yeah, sort of a
sort of.
babysitter. He was one that he didn't bring him home, but he definitely was a part of my sister and my sort of childhood because, well, first of all, one of my favorite stories is that Andy, when he came into the improv,
Mhm.
duped both my parents, who were very savvy people, as the a man from an island in the middle of the Caspian Sea, and they both were entirely duped by him, and
Oh,
that tickles me to no
me
end
too.
because yeah, right, like that he got them, and they both loved him, and that tickles me as a child of divorce. I love when my parents find some common ground. Andy they both found him incredibly talented and special. He held a special place for my parents. And My parents, the Improv started as a place for Broadway show people to let down their hair. There was no comedy clubs as we know it.
Yep.
And my mom was on Broadway, and they opened up this coffee house that could accommodate the chorus, not just the leads like Sardi's, and where people could come and let down their hair and improvise and all of that. And so in 1970, I mean, one, two. My parents saw that there were people on Broadway. There was kids on Broadway. There was
Hmm.
Annie, and there was this, and they started, and maybe they actually were more motivated that they had a ham on there. All I wanted for most of my child was an agent for my birthday. Like I wanted to be a child actor.
Yep.
And for Hanukkah and Christmas, my birthday, can I have an agent for my birthday? I don't know where. Obviously, I got a lot of probably people laughing at that, so I would continue to
Yep.
say it. It sounds so obnoxious and precocious, but whatever. I
Yeah,
have to be.
it's not when you're that person born in that point of view. Hillary and Francesca Rollins, same thing with both of that. Like
That's right.
no, I get it. You're that second generation. You're around it all.
All
Who
around it,
doesn't want to be
right?
a part of it?
Right. We want to be a part of it. I wanted, that's right. And probably I saw how much my parents loved performers. So kind of wanted to maybe get their attention that way. Anyway, so they came up with this children's cabaret once a month on a Sunday where they would bring kid actors in to sing, to dance. I stood on my head. I might have done a cartwheel. My sister played the violin. We were Nepo babies very early on, getting stage time, probably not worth it. Danielle Berbois, Andrea McCarl singing, from Broadway. And we were like, I'm doing standing on my head. But the greatest part about that children's cabaret is that Andy Kaufman hosted. And so this once in a month Sunday during the day in Hell's Kitchen, New York,
Mhm.
Andy would come and the kids who were the audience got to vote whether they wanted Andy to be Elvis, Mr. Mean, who evolved into Tony Clifton, or Foreign Man, which evolved into Latka on Taxi. And we would get to decide, and he would do it. And he would do, I mean, all of the bits that he would do at night, Mighty Mouse and Eat My Ice Cream, all the things. And they work for both levels. I mean, because they
Yep.
were animated and he did impressions and there was music and it was always like interactive. I mean, first row, I mean, literally, I wasn't maybe in the first row, but like
Yeah.
first road is to like be part of Andy Kaufman developing his act, and like he would take us bunny hopping around Times Square, probably not the same, these days that would never happen. My parents would be like, oh my God, my child in Times
Yeah.
Square.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was such a positive for me because I got to go on stage and laugh and yeah, it was really, really special. And, he just continued to always be part of the club and part of the improv. And when the LA club opened, he was the monthly residency. So in order to start building the business, I believe I heard my dad did like a Robin Williams residency. So for a month, Robin was performing, and then for a month, Andy would be, and it wouldn't be only Andy, but it was kind of like headlining before headlining a little
Yeah.
bit. They called it a residency. So, he was a big part of, the family. And I remember seeing him both at Carnegie Hall and also at, I think, the Palladium and going on buses after for milk and cookies. And
Mhm.
I mean, he was so incredibly imaginative and wild. And I think I pretended to get every joke of the nighttime comics and probably got, a one out of every 10. But Andy, we got. I mean, Andy was Andy and
Yeah.
he did what he did and it didn't change. And maybe he didn't do the wrestling for the kids, but everything else.
Well, that was where I was introduced to him. But also
Yeah,
a couple of other things too. But the wrestling, yeah, that was a big one for me. Like, man, that one show. Apparently they called it the famous show. I've talked to
Jerry
Jerry
Lawler.
Lawler, and he said that was Morty used to call that the famous show, and he said that was he I mean, you talk about a performance artist.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new documentary? Are you one of the chosen few that's gotten to see the new doc yet?
No, I
Yeah, me
haven't.
neither. I think they're
Yeah,
still looking for distribution, but I sure hope they get it. I mean, these
me too.
tapes that were available that they've listened to, all these hours and hours and hours of tapes that are I can't wait for this documentary. Thank you for talking about Andy.
Oh,
It's
he was
amazing
so
that you have
special.
have these memories
He
with
was
him.
so, so, so special. And because of him, I think my dad took me to the Taxi set when I was a kid. And it was kind of that same moment that I had at Letterman. I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I want to, like, I saw production and I saw a set and I was like, oh, how do I get, like,
Yeah.
it was first love. And the Letterman piece was only that continuation because I was like 8 or 9 at the time when my dad took me to Taxi and the sets just as like he wanted to go and I would tag along. Same with the show. But anyway, so both of those experiences, I remember kind of really being informative, like, and Mary Tyler Moore wanting to be a woman in TV.
Oh yeah. Well, that's yeah. Um,
Who else? Anybody else?
Mitch
I'd love to.
Hedberg. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. No, I want to ask about Mitch Hedberg because he's one of those guys. Again, some of these comedians that I wish that I could connect with now. Like that's a mind. How do you? I don't know how somebody comes up with the material that Mitch Hedberg came up with that unique of a voice.
So
You
special.
you Eddie wasn't there. You booked Mitch on Letterman, right? That was you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave him his network debut. Um, I gave Louis his not network debut, his Letterman debut. My predecessor didn't quite get him when he was doing that weird-ish stuff, and he
Yep.
definitely had a shift in his comedy.
Yep.
But I got him, weird and all. But he had done Conan, right? He had it, but Mitch was my booking. He was my net. I gave him his network debut, and he was so funny and so his pacing, his timing was so unique and because he wasn't the Stephen Wright of it, he wasn't, he had his own cadence but similar on these one liners but just also so imaginative and so funny. And I was so happy that Dave got him because he didn't look like a Jake Johansson. He certainly, so that was one of
He was very
my.
much a Gen X comic as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's right. And it made me feel like those, like I said, I only wanted to get it right, not for my ego, like so I had job security, although clearly I thought I was going to be fired a lot. But I wanted to get it right because I love comedy and I knew Dave loved it. So to get, and he came back many times and I remember him sort of like nodding out like I did in the middle of this podcast when I lost my way. No, he sort of like had this moment where he stopped and he kind of and he's wearing his glasses and he was probably high on drugs.
Yep.
And I then again go, oh, fuck, I'm going to get fired. This guy's going to nod out and I'm going to and he pulled it back. And because that was sort of like his persona, Dave never said
He got
anything.
away
He
with it.
played off, he got away with it. He might have just forgotten his joke and kind of played into his persona, but he was so funny. And boy, I wish he was around today, right? Because he was so funny. It's so much more, it was really, I mean, it's back to comedy gives back, right?
Hmm.
Maybe there could have been maybe we could have supported him in some way, but so funny and
Absolutely.
so proud of that booking. Like that makes me,
Well, I don't know that. Okay, so you talk about the path not taken. We were talking about it the other way. Maybe they don't get SNL or whatever. I got to say this to you. I don't think you don't book him on Letterman. I don't think I've ever heard of Mitch Hedberg. I honestly think that not just because I watched every night or whatever, but again that sensibility. Like I appreciate the fact that you booked him on that show too because I loved him even though I barely got a chance to see him and once YouTube kind of expanded and whatnot, I have watched so much Hedberg and I just appreciate him. He's just
oh,
these unique comics that are there. You mentioned Altman earlier. I love Jeff Altman. In my phone, he is Jeff Buttsteak Altman because he used to come and say the word butt steak on Letterman all the time. Please, any Jeff Altman stuff that you want to talk about, please talk about. I adore this man.
all right. I will say maybe you want to cut this out, but we'll see. It's not so mean. So, when we made the change from NBC to CBS,
Yeah.
even though I was tasked with booking his friends twice, it got increasingly harder as the pressure to book higher end guests, lead guests, competition with Letterman, right? And
Mhm.
so booking his friends and, was just more challenging to find
Yeah.
spots.
Yeah.
But again, I would never not do what Dave asked me to do. And there was a time when I got called up to Dave's office and which again didn't happen a lot.
Yep.
And I walk in, he said, let me ask you something, Zoe. And I was like, okay. It's like, has Chef Allman ever made you cry? And I said, no, I don't know if I would want to like, meet him alone in a dark alley, but no, he's never made me cry. And he goes, "See, Jeff, I told you it's you." Jeff was on the phone. That was not 100% cool. Thank God I have diplomacy in my freaking blood, right? Like I knew so I said something which was quippy and funny that kind of also said he's a pain in my side. Like I don't know if I want to see him in a dark alley
Yeah.
because he would not harass me. He wanted to get on the show and
Yeah.
I would have to go, "I'm going to do it, Jeff. I'm going to do." So that
I've
was a
heard
moment.
stories of the messages he would leave, and the phone calls that he would bring into the office. I've heard, yeah. I mean, yeah, he was known for
I
this
mean,
stuff.
his
Yeah.
manager, I forgot his name.
I don't know who the manager is.
No, I think it was Jeff.
I think, well, yeah, that's just it. Yeah. That was how I heard. Sorry. That's how I heard it. I heard it that it was Jeff who would call in and harass and okay. Yeah.
That's what I think too.
That's how I had
Yeah.
heard it. I've only heard
Yeah.
it that way.
There wasn't LinkedIn. There wasn't like a way to check. There wasn't IMDb Pro. There wasn't, a lot of, so, so I was having these conversations with Jeff's manager. And so when I was called up, it wasn't like on the heels of that, but I had definitely had kind of some challenging
Right.
conversations. So that's where, I mean, so Dave took my side, like, "See, I know it's you, not her." Like, so he always takes my side, just like he did with Mitzi. And then I'll tell you the Duran Duran story
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
where I booked Jeff. He was always funny, pulling his pants up and, all that. I love Jeff. So the other time when Dave, like, took my side and, like, came to my rescue, and then rescuing, but, like, at this moment, after the show, and I'm sure you've heard this, there is a protocol. And that protocol is you clear those aisles so Dave can get up to his dressing room.
Yep.
No ifs,
Yep.
no ands. Again, I am diplomatic. I am talent friendly. I know how to do it with a smile. And Duran Duran, the last guests, they come off and they're having their kind of groupie heyday, right? And I'm doing my job. And I was like, "Excuse me, John, may I ask you just to step over here or go to the elevator?" Super nice, right? Like I wasn't yelling. I would never do that. I was young. I had patience. I had estrogen at the time. All good. I was very patient. And I would be like, "John, if you could just, or Simon, whatever."
Yeah.
And Dave whisked by us as I was nicely trying to negotiate. And it was John who was kind of giving me, "I don't have to go anywhere, blah, blah, blah," and Dave whisked by us and stopped on the landing, right inside of the sound lot, right there,
Mm-hmm.
and looked down. So it's Dave, a half a flight of stairs up, and he turns to John and Simon Lemon's like, "I think you owe Zoe an apology. She's doing her job. I think you owe her an apology," in front of and Dave Becky is the one who reminded me of that. I mean, I was just doing my job and, I probably was a moment I probably told it, but, like, you go on to your next show, but he remembers that because I think for Dave to step up and, I was a talent assistant, like, but he took care of his staff.
Yep.
Always took care of his staff.
Yep.
And I always felt he was always amazing to me, respectful, and, and then took definitely had my back on certain things with Mitzi Shore, with Jeff, with, Duran Duran. And, yeah.
Do you
So
remember the first time you met Mitzi?
I never met her.
Whoa, really?
No, I mean, how? I mean, how? I know, I
Well,
don't
she was still there when you were she was still there
know,
when you were
but I
booking,
wouldn't go
but
to the club. Back to
yeah,
that
no,
voice.
no, no, I feel you.
The opportunity to go to the club. Like, oh, well, that's okay. So she died after I would go to the Comedy Store, right? So
Yep.
you're right. I was in the clubs, but again, I lived in New York till 99, 2000. She died in probably what, 2017, 20.
No, that sounds about right.
I don't know why I've never met her ever, I don't think. So I do have a joke about Paul. I do have a joke. I've never I've written one joke or maybe two in my life, Mike, because comedy scares the shits out of me, like
I know.
because I know how hard it is. Like,
Yep.
so my joke is, and if I was to do it like David Letterman would do it,
Uh-huh.
because he would always give the piece of information and then the joke. So let me try to do it that way. You all know who Pauly Shore is, right? Pauly Shore, the son of Mitzi Shore, the owner of stand-up comic himself, MTV star of the 80s. This is from me, not from Dave. I too, grew up with comedy. My parents owned the Improv. It's too long. See how I'm butchering it.
No, you're
What
not. I'm
it
with
is.
you.
So, what's the biggest difference between me and Pauly Shore? That's really the joke. And then you go, what's the
What?
difference? 20 years of therapy.
Beautiful. It's
I didn't set it up right, but you
No,
get it.
you did. You did. Well, for me, you did. I don't know. I don't give
But
a shit about the.
the setup,
For those of us
yeah.
who love this stuff, you set it up perfectly. You know
Uh,
exact. Oh no, that's a
the
perfect joke.
reason the reason I set it up and I said that thing about Dave is because when I got my internship, my advisor, my academic advisor at my college had to kind of lie for me because we didn't have summer internships. We had January internships. So I
Ah,
did the summer internship and he watched the show. I asked him, I said, I'll go back in January and get my credit, but this is an opportunity for me to do a summer and then I can go back in January. And he watched the show. And he's a fine arts professor at a small liberal arts college upstate New York, right close to the Montreal border. Like
yep.
he had never seen the show and he watched. He goes, "You know what I really like about it, and why I think it has value is that it's kind of." He didn't say infotainment, but he's like, "I love that he gives you the information you need, and then he tells you the joke."
Yeah.
That is so like he really like was and I never really thought about that because that's good comedy, right? Like any
Sure.
you read the headline, Delta's on strike this week for 300 days, whatever it is, and then you go to the joke. So it was so part of what, but my professor and advisor watched it, made that comment, signed off so I could go do my internship, and the rest is history. So
He appreciated the dash of broadcasting that Dave brought. That
that's correct.
yeah.
That's absolutely right. That's right.
Um. The only reason I'm stopping this now is because of the time. That's the
All
only
right.
reason. Like I could do this with you all night, and I appreciate this. Oh my God, it's so good. I do want to end on a sentimental note, because it's something that I just want to say as an observer from Canada that you would well, we did meet that one time, but you would never have known that I felt this way just because I've read Bill Carter books and I've observed the scene here. And I just lost my dad 4 months ago.
And
Um, if I have it right, you lost your parents in the same year. It was kind of the Conan thing within a month of each other or 2 months of each
three
other.
weeks, three
3 weeks
weeks,
of each other. Okay. Um, I'm sorry about that already. I know it's a few years and whatnot, but it's close to me
3 years.
because I just lost dad. And there's one thing that I don't even know if I have I don't know. It's observational authority at best. I don't know what to say. All I know is from what I know about your parents and your legacy in comedy, um, and perhaps you could even talk about what they felt about when you started Comedy Gives Back and as it evolved and whatnot. They have got to be just so incredibly proud of you. I mean, my God, they must be so proud of you, in carrying on in your own way, in your own direction, with your own voice, unique. There is nobody in this business like you. And I just imagine they must have been so proud when you told them about Comedy Gives Back. And I'm just curious if there's any story there or not.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were proud of. I mean, they were proud of me for, I was lucky enough that I had success in my career and I had a career that was important to my parents, right? So, out of forget the comedy is back of it all, the fact that I worked at the David Letterman show and Comedy Central, and I think they were super. One of the things my dad told me early on, he was in New York, he was at Stand Up New York with me. I was maybe doing a showcase or checking people out. He came with me. He went to the bar, he leaned in and asked what kind of wine they had, whatever. And he heard somebody lean over to the bartender and said, "That's Zoe Friedman's father. Give him anything he wants." I mean,
That's
mic drop,
fantastic.
right? Like,
Mic drop. Yeah.
so, that I think, was very like a proud moment for my father. And my parents, were proud of me for my successes and for me as a human. And the comedy gives back of it all. What don't have a regret. They knew I was doing it,
Yeah.
right? But we were in the beginning stages, and
Right.
when you're building I don't know, I was building the plane as we were flying it, and they were witnessing it, and yet I'm not sure I shined. They knew about it. That's not true because my dad would come to the comedy things at the Improv, my mom too sometimes. So they would see it and they were proud of it. My stepmother is still on this planet and I love her. And she, you know, she says things, right, like about the comedy is back because we've grown so much. And she,
Yeah.
I get to tell her these things like, I'm going to be on the Kelly Clarkson show when I'm in New York, Mike, like to talk about comedy is back. So she, she's holding of that torch in the speaker of, to be the speaker for my dad. So yeah, they were proud of me, and I believe they really love the comedy is back of it all. And they probably would be more proud if I would probably won an Emmy. I don't know. They were I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, but look where they
But
came from.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
exactly. But yeah, I think they were very proud of the Comedy Gives Back. And we were such in the beginning stages, as we're still in the beginning stages. And yet, we were kind of building and flying the plane, and they were waiting to see it. But the world was so top. Yeah, yes, they were. I'll leave it at, I mean, yes.
yeah.
And yeah, it's coming up on the third anniversary of my both of them, November 12th for my dad and December 3rd for my mom. And I will say that like the thing about the improv, right, and not winning Emmys or producing, which is something I started wanting, one of the reasons I got into the business. I love TV and I
Yeah.
wanted, that ultimate is that they really truly love the artist, and I do know, and I said that before, and I don't need to like, they also, again, it was also a business. And put me through college
Hmm.
and private school, and I'm grateful for it. And it's I'm giving back, right? But uh, uh yeah, they love comics, and they loved artists. My mom was a real art, she was a singer, so she really came from the artist perspective, and would have given her last dollar and almost did to the comics over herself when she had went into bankruptcy in 92,
Hmm.
which is when I started Letterman. I had a moment with Dave on the ice at our Christmas party in 93 after or 94 after the improv closed. And I skated up to him. We used to do these skate thing,
Yep.
in Woman Rink, or, and then Rockefeller. And I skated up to him and I said, I just wanted to tell you how grateful I am. I'm working on the show, and, the improv closed this year. And I started to get teary
Hmm.
about it. And it was my gratitude that had made this leap outside of the club.
Hmm.
And I started tearing up, as I am now, which is weird.
Hmm.
And I sort of said to him, I'm going to skate away now and hope to have my job on Monday. Just skated away because I knew, like,
You
I should
said
have.
those words?
I said to him, I'm going to skate away
Yeah.
to make this any weirder than it is. I didn't say the thing about having my job on Monday. I think I said that to my friends as I skated away. But, like, I kind of was like, I'm going to use this opportunity to be
Yeah.
mobile, because I was getting emotional, and I knew
Yeah.
that's not why he's on skates. He's on
No.
skates to skate away. So I was like, I'm gonna skate away now that I'm getting I'm not gonna make it any more weird or something like that. So I had that moment with him, but with the club closing. But my parents did love comics and love artists, and I think that's the legacy that I feel so natural. The development and producing was natural just because it was the clear extension of
Yeah.
my career, and when I
It's what
booked
you
the
knew too. Like you have the
what I
instinct
knew,
for it.
and
It's
it's
what you, yeah.
and after doing the 5-minute sets with the comics, I asked, actually, I wanted to be the development person for Worldwide Pants, and I asked for that job in 1999 when they were starting to have a development thing, and I asked for
Yep.
the job, and Rob said, Zoe, we get to hire one person and they have to be experienced. I was like, I wanted to say experience. I got you Jim Gaffigan and and
Yep.
blah blah blah. And I didn't know what development was. I was not experienced. I had good taste and I could identify, but I did not. And he said, you have a home here forever. Like, he couldn't have been a nicer rejection, but I wasn't getting that job.
Yep.
And then I soon after heard about the Comedy Central job. So I believe I put it in the universe that I wanted to do development, and I
Yep.
got. And when I worked at Comedy Central doing development with comics, I worked with comics, but I worked with writers, and I missed working with comics. Getting, like, I knew I wanted to grow it and I wanted to work with comics, but that also meant I worked with writers and whatever, and that was
Yep.
great. But when I got further away from comics, I got further away from my center, and I got further away from really my uh my hub,
Where you're supposed to be.
where I'm supposed to be,
Yep.
and the spokes come out of, right? Like, I felt when I would get too too much out of the stand-up world. It just wasn't as or real and right there. It wasn't where I should be. And it took, it was great career, but it feels so great. And I still try, I'm still developing stuff, and I have a
Yeah.
film that I wrote that might get made in Italy. I mean, who knows? But, you know, yeah, the comedy is back of it all makes no sense. It makes all the sense in the world, right? Like, never did I think I would be worrying about like a psychotherapist for a comic, really. And yet, of course, I would care about a psychotherapist for a comic.
Yeah.
Like, if like somebody called me that did the Letterman show and said my friend needs, I'd be like, so now we get to do it in the infrastructure. And two, what I didn't finish earlier is when Dave or Jay and they help their friends,
Yeah.
right? Not everybody has that person.
No.
And what comedy gives back gets to be is the great equalizer and the infrastructure, taking it out of like the personal and making it more infrastructure of shouldn't we be supporting all working comedians?
Hmm.
Like, so, not everybody has the Dave and the Jay, and so that's the comedy gets back of it all. But yeah, it feels like wholly natural and wholly like, wow, I'm running a nonprofit. What? Like, but it would not be applied to anything else. Like, now I'm like, because of algorithms, like I get like executive director jobs. I'm like, I'm not an executive director for anything but comedy gives back. Like,
Yeah.
this is, like that
It's
is
specialized. Your
it's
viewpoint in this
specialized
world is specialized.
specialized. And I get to do I get to book for it. I get to like, have community from it. I get to maybe win Emmys from it if we ever get, to do TV down the line. Who knows, right? Like, but it is my place. It's where I need to be. I know that. I know it.
Enjoy it while you can, Zoe,
Yeah.
because at a certain point, your team's going to be so big that you don't get a chance to do a bunch of this stuff that you get to do now. I see
Wow.
that. Like, it's going to grow into a massive, massive organization that you're going to, like you said, will outlive you, will move on. It's this thing that you're building
Yeah.
for
Not
future generations, and
that's
it's beyond admirable. It's so needed, because it's
needed.
so unique, and many times the unique things don't ever get built because people don't think to do
Yeah,
it.
there's
I think
that's
it took you and it wasn't just you. You got cohorts too. I get it, but
100%.
but that's what it took. It took that point of view coming up, taking care of comedians your whole life. You've seen it your whole life. Jay Leno was one of them on the couch.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
Totally. And, my parents would employ comics to paint the club and do errands, like to give them money in their pocket. And we're like, do we do a career training thing for comics so they can get day? Like we've talked
yep,
about that. I saw my parents doing that all the time, for comics and, picking up a shift here, doing this, babysitting.
yep.
Kevin Nealon babysat for my sister and my cousin. I took us to Knott's Berry Farms. Anyway, but those are for other stories.
Well, you got a million of them, and like again, I cannot tell you how grateful I am for this.
Oh, I'm
Um,
so happy. It was fun. And I want to see if I can find that house.
please,
Hold
yeah,
on.
okay. So is it? How much
Yeah.
stuff from your Letterman days have you saved? Have you saved? Did you save any jackets?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, yes, I have so many jackets. My
Nice.
son loved the jackets.
Yeah,
Uh, he definitely, hold on one second. I can get
they're the
them.
best. I've like I've got 7 of them now, and I
You
love
did?
every single one of them. Um, you know what? The original Late Night with David Letterman original jacket, the late night jacket. I have Ed Hall's. Somehow, some way, I ended up with Ed Hall's
That's fun.
late night
That's
with
funny.
David Letterman jacket. But
I've given a few away. I definitely have a bunch, too
yep,
many, takes up a lot of room. Don't know what to do with them.
yep.
Second.
Well,
I
up here
mean,
in
this,
Canada, it's actually pretty good because they're so damn warm.
yeah.
I put them to use all the time.
Hold on. I'm getting this, Mike. I think I
I know,
found
no, I know you are. We're just
it's in the hidden stuff. I think so. I think I keep all I don't know, South Park box, but that's another thing. Okay. So I have a sun bookmark. So this is my little keepsake. I have
oh.
mhm. Okay. So the collapsible cup.
Right. Yep.
I love it.
Fantastic.
Best.
Yep.
Um, hold on.
I love
Uh,
show and tell. I love when we have show and tell segments on this show. Oh,
Late Show 1000 show.
yep.
Seen that, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I think Gabe Abelson has showed me his,
Okay.
I believe.
I think we got keychain, Tiffany keychains veneer with the
Wow.
um I'm gonna end with, let's see. I mean,
Yeah.
I have other like keepsakes like for shows that I work on, but this, when we got back from Nagano, Dave gave the crew, the people that went,
Whoa.
an ounce of gold from the Swiss bank, Credit Suisse.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's
So
really cool.
oh, and then of course I have the two-sided
Oh,
pencil.
I love mine so much.
Uh,
Carson used these, hey? Did you know that?
yeah, did he? Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
it's where he was a drummer. I guess they like to drum on things or whatever. So, Mark Malkoff, shout out to our boy Mark Malkoff, who was the
yeah,
Carson podcast.
I love that. I can't wait to get that book.
Oh, hey, you know what? It's in reach. I
Yeah, no, I know. I'm excited for it.
Zoe, I've read it 3 times. Like it's so good. You will learn so much out of that book. It is so good. I highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Well, I love all the information. I love how much he has, how much information, the citing of all those things. And um, yeah, so I think that, yeah, I'm excited. I love Johnny so much.
Oh,
He
it's
was,
the
I think,
perfect title for the book because most people around Johnny loved him, like exactly with the admiration that you're talking about. And most of the stories that people have about him were with that love. And many of the books that have been released on Johnny, I think, enjoy throwing the shade. They enjoy fixating on the negative things. And guess what? All humans have negative things, and
that's
why
right.
focus on that? Whereas Mark's book, even like during the Joan Rivers stuff, it doesn't villainize Joan at all. It doesn't villainize Johnny and his treatment of her at all. It states it, even the hard stuff that's in the book is stated so well, but the vast majority of it is just warm, optimistic, loving things, segments that you've seen in the past and thought you even knew the behind the scenes. You didn't. It is, there's 40 pages of citations in it. 40 pages of
No, I
citations.
heard that I heard that. And I mean that, but I know, and you can make that comparison to the Bill Carter or Late Shift, like that book. I mean, that was, I was working at the show. Like it was like in real time and Peter, I
Yes.
mean, awesome. And
So good.
what a resource, and what a, when books were legit and facts were facts, and like people did their homework and didn't, anyway, yeah.
Um,
So yeah. I'm trying to
I
think of any other cool souvenirs like in my reach,
yeah.
I mean that's my box of goodies. I think that was where my gold is. And
It's a
that's what
well, no, that's to give you an ounce of gold. Like
I
it's
mean, right?
it's
Like,
just fantastic, and it's so Dave. Like, and I appreciate the culture. And again, like I said, talk about the dialects of people who work there. You certainly have it. I feel it meeting all of these people. Hey, if there was one person you'd like to see Dave give the treatment, the Netflix treatment, the My Next Guest treatment, is there somebody you'd like to see Dave do in long form?
um like in so not the stand-up show, but his
No,
Netflix
no,
show.
that's right. The My Next Guest, the give him the Tom Snyder treatment, the long form, the
One-on-one, not
one-on-one
the,
long form.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's such a good question. He's such a good interviewer.
I know.
It just really shows how good he is. God, I don't know. Bill Cosby. No, I'm kidding. Don't do Bill Cosby. Kidding. Um, I don't know, Mike. Who would you want him to see?
Mine's an unpopular answer. I told, okay, I'll tell you this. You know Rory Rosegarden? You know
Yeah.
Rory? Okay. So I had him on the show and I talked to him about it and I said, I know who it is. And when I gave him my justification, he just looked at me and said, that's a fan's answer. Okay, but I do believe fan service sometimes is, but if I present the whole case to you, I think that it's compelling to me for a whole bunch of reasons. It's Rogan, and the reason it's Rogan is because I don't know if there's anybody else on the planet right now who can give somebody the Carson bump, but Rogan can. Rogan can
By the
make a
way,
career
I
in
don't even
one.
have to, you don't have to build a case. I say yes. That is a fucking brilliant,
Can I tell you my idea for it though?
yeah.
Dave goes to Austin. Dave has a night at the mothership because you know how my next guest likes to have B-roll and all that sort of stuff, right? Like the sub stories.
Yeah.
Dave goes to the comedy mothership. He brings Dreesen, he brings Altman, he brings any of the people who want to perform. It's a comedy legends night. They do their thing. They get their green room hang at the mothership and get to see. And by the way, the bar is called what's Mitzi's, of course, because Rogan was a Comedy Store guy, banned from the Comedy Store, got brought back. I mean, well, yeah, my gosh, we could talk about that. Um,
Yeah, that's
comes
right.
back, and then when he goes to take stand-up comedy and grow it somewhere else, and take all of the things that the Improv did and the Ice House did and the Comedy Store did and perfect them all without any outcome except creating a place for comics to have a safe place, bringing Adam in to book it, all of that sort of stuff. You've got Dave, who was probably second class. He was probably the second class at the Comedy Store. There was probably one class before him, but Tom was there, you know, and the legacy of that. And then you have Dave, fucking do it. Get on, go 2 hours with Rogan. And then you have Rogan and him do, maybe they do my next guest first, or maybe they do it that way. To me, that is a win, 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 win for everybody. And to me, it would be, yeah, Rory's right. It's a fan thing, sure.
I
But
don't know even if it's a fan thing. I don't even. I mean, the hang with his friends. I don't know. I don't uphold the Joe Rogan thing as anything so incredibly special as you do, Mike. But
okay.
I think that Rogan, as a person who has impact and has taken it like a tangential connected world. It's kind of like Marin talking about Rogan, right?
Yep.
Like I want him to interview him, like
Oh, me
because
too.
I think he could, and obviously the podcast is gone, but like asking questions, like I would love to see Dave interview Joe and hear what Joe has to say to a lot of those questions. That B-roll in the club and creating that like for Dave or that kind of
Yeah.
hanging with his friends, maybe,
Yeah.
like, but I'd like to see him kind of walk the line with Joe and sort of challenge him and yet, be reverent because I mean, Joe has impact and he's growing it. There's not no joke to that.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, that's an interesting guess for sure. And I mean, I like your pitch on the segment, but I don't even need that. I would just want him to,
Yeah.
interview him. But I think that's a great idea. And yeah, I guess the mothership, yeah, it's a nice club.
Have you
That would
been?
be cool. I did. Yeah, I went once.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was
Enjoyed it?
nice. I did. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right
yeah.
on. I
Yeah.
just I appreciate, and I'm gonna every once in a while I'm gonna bug you and I'm gonna ask you for your insights on certain things that happen in comedy because your opinion is nothing short of expert. And I just well, it's true. You really, really are. And I'm so damn charmed by you. And again, don't meet your heroes. No, 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 no. Go meet your heroes. And that's how I feel. And I appreciate you very, very much. Before we close up this episode, was there anything that popped into your head that you wanted to say or get out there? Oh, first off, let's plug for Comedy Gives Back, and I'm going to plug it in the intro too, so
Okay,
people will
cool.
hear it at the very beginning as well.
Yeah.
But what's the best way for people to find out about Comedy Gives Back? Just go to the website.
Go to the website,
Yep.
comedygisback.com.
Yep.
And when you enter our website, there's a portal for comics. So if you're a comic, you're looking for resources, you hit on that button and you're taken to all of our resources and our application for grants. And that's great. And if you're a comic that doesn't need resources and want to give, you can also just donate. And when you land on it, on our website, there's donation, obviously, button to do, and you can find more information, obviously, on the organization and our programs and resources. And we help comics with financial crisis, mental health, and chemical dependency treatment. Those are our three pillars.
Yep.
We do community outreach. So yeah, please donate, please find out more, go support live comedy. That really make our vision is a world that we don't need to help comics. There's so much work for stand-ups and they're treated like artists, that they're paid well and their value is cemented and they don't have to come to us to help with rent or medical bills. Just go support live comedy. As easy as that. What could possibly go wrong, right, Mike?
Yes. That's right. Let's just leave it at that. That's right. Um, Fantastic. You are making the world a better place. You are that person. And I appreciate it so much about you. Thank you so much for taking so much time here and vulnerability. Like, I know you're a vulnerable person, but not everybody necessarily knows that. You are so vulnerable. Vulnerability is a superpower. And I appreciate the heck out of that. Um, oh, hey, I don't know. Yeah, what have, we have one sponsor at this show. One sponsor only, and that is Rupert G and the Hello Deli. And Rupert doesn't own the deli anymore. He retired a couple years ago,
That's
but
right.
hello-deli.com still exists. It's one of the only places you can go for official Late Show with David Letterman merchandise. Dave gave Rupert the license to do that after he retired.
No
Yeah,
way.
so if you want mugs, if you want now Walter at Barbara Gaines Show, you can get Barbara Gaines Show stuff too, and I've got that stuff. But
Okay.
the original Late Show mugs, shirts, all that stuff, Rupert is
Oh, I
the
didn't.
guy. You go to he packs the orders many times himself. If you ask him nicely, he'll add
What's
onions.
it? What's the website?
Hello-deli. You got to put the dash in there. Hello-deli.com. And just it's Rupert and drop
I
a note.
love
So that's the only sponsor of our show.
it.
My boy Rupert's doing real well.
I'm so
And
happy to hear that. Shout out to Rupert G.
there you go. Any Hello Deli stories?
I had a sandwich named after me
There it
there
is.
that I wanted in a gambling night. We had a casino night and what was it? Yeah, it was like a casino night, and I think Daniel won it or an auction, and then I gambled it away from him, and I got a sandwich named after me
Oh,
that
that
was
is hilarious.
warm chicken breast on a roll. So I had it for a little bit of time.
Oh, that's fantastic. You won it at a casino night. That is a phenomenal
Something
little
I
tidbit of a
couldn't remember.
prize.
There was some gambling involved. I mean, we didn't gamble a lot, like, but so it was like, yeah,
Yeah,
like I feel like there was, and I'm not a big, it was funny, yeah. That's
that's
like,
fantastic.
and I
All
really
right.
wanted it. I wanted a sandwich. I wanted my name, sandwich named after me.
I, I spoke at Rupert's retirement thing. They did a thing at the Ed Sullivan Theater. Pants put on a thing for him, and for whatever reason, Walter allowed me to speak, and it was great. One of the sentiments, talking to all of these people that I worshiped for so long, one of the sentiments that did go around is I always wanted a sandwich named after me. Actually, if you watch the video on YouTube, they have the Pants put it up there on their YouTube channel. Kathy Mavrakakis came up and spoke and said, "Yeah, I always she gave Rupert shit for not giving her a sandwich after her."
That's
Which
so
is
funny. And I had one that I won probably illegally or something, not illegally, but it was a little bit, and I'm not a like swindly person. I'm a vulnerable, sincere person. So
so
whatever
we've
happened
established, yes.
to get that sandwich though, you know how much I wanted it that I kind of like up. So I forget what I did, but I definitely swindled my way to it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, you made my
So
day.
I
I
ate
didn't.
lunch after I could afford, we didn't have baked potatoes in the, once I could afford lunch, I went to Rupert's a lot for sure.
Yeah.
All the time,
Talk
it
about
was,
kindness and vulnerability. Like the counselor of the Worldwide Pants staff, Rupert G. I
it's his
mean,
voice. It was like the minute
yep.
he spoke, it's like Tim Duffy. Like I'm just go on, Rupert. I'm calm now. I come down like yes, canceling or whatever, and hey Zoe, what do you want? Very calm, very.
You take kind and turn it into a human being. You got Rupert G. He's
Oh,
just he's
totally.
just he's phenomenal. And I
Is
just
May still around?
oh, May's awesome too. Yeah, May's fantastic. She's going back and forth between Asia and America now. But since they've sold the deli, but yeah, May's around. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, you betcha.
I love that they're selling the merch. That's the best. I mean, Dave, so quirky. It's so
Yep.
lovely. It's so weird.
It's
It's
perfect, right? It's perfect that
perfect.
he would do.
It's perfect. It's
Um,
perfect.
you're a treat. You're a gem. You're
Mike,
you're
I
all the
love it.
things.
Ah,
Thank you
I
so
love
much. I'll
seeing you.
do a quick outro. We'll say our goodbye privately. This is why we do the show. Oh my God, this is why we do the show. Just so much appreciation for everybody who consumes us in whatever way. Thank you for your letters. I appreciate them. Thank you for all the things. We celebrate the greatest body of broadcast work in history, that of David Letterman and company. This conversation is one of the prime reasons why. The transfer of knowledge is very important, and it's cool that we can go back down memory lane and talk about this while we talk about forging a future for better for comedians out there and for the world too, and free speech and all that crap. This is why we do the show. This has been another episode of the Letterman Podcast with Mike Chisholm. Coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. Thank you and good night. Oh my God.
They don't talk to me.
Yeah.
I don't talk to them. Bang, zoom. All right.